Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast, episode 93. So we got a little bit of feedback there. Second. All right. So, we this week we weren't able to get a hold on, having all kinds of problems this week.
This week we
shit, I'm having all kinds of problems. Here, somebody else talk for a minute so I can fix my end.
All right, I'll take it. So yeah, we weren't able to get a guest this week, and Steve's going to work out his audio issues. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's looping on our end. So we do have Mr. Green Jeans is here. What's up, Mr. Green Jeans? We got Hogmaster.
How's it going, everybody?
There. Anyway. So yeah, we were all just sort of chatting when we realized we didn't have a guest, and we were just talking with Hogmaster about the shishka berry that he harvested not too long ago. You want to talk about that a little bit, Hog?
I finished it up. It's been over 2 months ago. It's actually been curing for about 2 months, and had a great harvest on both plants that I did. It's a real floral berry smell. I've never smelled anything quite like it. And it's just a very good cerebral high. And if you want to be able to go out and talk with people, highly recommended. I love it. Good stuff.
Cool, man. Yeah, I agree that here you can, a lot of the pictures and stuff that, we've shown in the past have been that and grew it in not this last run, but the run before that. And actually, I just smoked my last little bit of it just maybe even a couple of days ago. And I always really enjoyed it. So how you doing there, Steve? You got that stuff sorted out yet?
Yeah, I think I got it all sorted out. It's just the dual streaming to weedtv.com. I forgot to switch some of the audio settings that I normally set over because I just got stoned in space today. So it's very complicated to stream to multiple places at the same time. So especially to get the audio to work right for everything is quite the challenge, I assure you.
I can imagine.
Sounds like you got it worked out. Nice job.
Yep. So, I apologize for not having a guest this week. I had a couple of people that we were trying to get on, and just nobody was able to come on this week. And I had a lot of craziness and traveling this week. So I have just not as much time this week than I normally do to get everything booked up. And I do apologize. But we'll have a cool show. We always end up getting into some cool topics when we have these shows. I think the first time we got really heavy into lactobacillus stuff was an episode like this. So.
Yeah, I think so.
So, all right, there we go. Sorry about the background noise. Now we got that.
What do you guys think of Weed TV? Actually, that was something I've been meaning to ask you guys. I've been checking it out. I really enjoy a lot of the content on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff over there, and they were super cool to reach out to us and give us a spot over there. I gotta make a bigger banner for them actually, but it's really cool. We upload our stuff; it gets automatically saved there, just like YouTube. And they're giving us a nice place to stream and be live, and to have a new home, with all the bullshit going on with YouTube. So it's really awesome that we're able to dual stream over there, and then we're still archiving everything and re-uploading it to the normal Aquaponic channel, or at least to my channel and to the podcast and everything. So, and that'll always happen. The podcast won't go down, regardless of whatever happens. We will continue. We have everything set up from multiple places. I'm working on setting us an additional backup just in case something happened to Weed TV and YouTube. We can also do streams on Twitch. I've been actually streaming the podcast every day at 4:20, one of the episodes over there, and then I've been restreaming old episodes quite often over there. So you can check us out on Twitch if you want to check out some of the older episodes and you just want to kind of hop in. You can always check that out over there. And we're trying to just find other ways to reach out to you people and to be available with the changing landscape of the social media right now. And Twitch seems to be pretty weed friendly as long as you're in a weed state. So,
And we also have you on ilovegrowingmarijuana.com forums.
oh
We
yeah,
have every episode on there as well.
yep. And then I want to reach out, also say Roger. I don't know where he is today. I spoke to him earlier. I must have ran into.
I've been trying to get a hold of Roger. I mean, not get a hold of him. I've been supposed to get a hold of Roger for like a month now. So
He
track him down too.
Sure. So he called me, and I guess they have a new aquaponic section set up on their forums now. So if anyone's looking for a place to post and show off stuff, and you want like a forum area, definitely go check that out at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. They have an aquaponic section. They're happy to host us over there, and with all the craziness, it's just nice to have a couple of places we know won't get taken down. So thank you to all those people for giving us a space to keep doing what we're doing. So, so what do you guys want to talk about today? What do you guys have going on in your garden? We want to start off with Marty, or what you got going on, Hogmaster? You just got reset up, right?
Yep, just got relocated. Just sent in a soil test for my garden, which I have a 40 by 40 garden area right now. So I have a huge space. I'm sitting on acreage, and I'm up in the mountains, and they have a huge agriculture system up here. And so I got a couple bags and sending them in and having my soil tested, see what all comes back on it. But I have a few things going right now. I'm doing currently 3 OG Kush autos in a 7-gallon smart pot using Pro Mix BX and growing all 3 of them in the same pot. So I got that going, and then I have a few more that are here and there on the property, but not the best results on them so far. Their growth is a little stunt, but they are still alive. So waiting to get my soil test back, and then I have some work to do on my new room. So that'll cost me a couple $100 to get it all up and going, but it'll eventually get started. I figured I'd do 3 outside in a smart pot, and that'll get me started for a while, because my last harvest is still lasted me. I still have several jars left, so I'm doing good. And I pressed enough to last me for a while. So I think I ended up pressing around 31 grams. So
now here's a question on the pressing. What moisture level are you pressing your stuff at? Because it was funny. I had the same stuff, and I accidentally let the one bag dry out a little bit, and I repressed it, and I got like half the yield the second time. I was like, oh damn, I need to re-moisturize this the next time I press any more of this, because
68%.
68%. I know it's in the 40 to 60% range.
I usually have this 62% Bavita packs is what I end up using. Usually before I press, I'll throw a couple in a jar for a couple days and then usually press it.
Cool.
Wet is good. The wet is good because the water helps push it out, especially if you're pressing at lower temperatures, I think. I mean, if you're getting down, 160 or whatever, seems like the water really helps.
Trying to get it to set up the way I want is what I'm trying to figure out, because some runs I do, it's runny all the time, and then I'll get some runs where it'll flake off, which that's what I like, is having the real hard ball.
It's wild. You get more questions sometimes than answers. You're like, what the?
Exactly,
like,
because it depends on what I'm pressing, because I get different
Totally.
results for different
genetics
things.
makes huge difference, right?
Huge difference.
Well, yeah, genetics, but also
The condition of the bud.
it's the terpene to cannabinoid ratio, but also the resin size. So, for instance, if you take those and you dry sift them or you bubble hash them and you separate those gland heads, and you take, say, the 25 and 40 micron bags, or even smaller than that, or even the real spiny stuff. That's mostly like CBG and CBD. The CBD trichomes tends to be much smaller than the bigger ones, and then your 70 through your 160 tends to be your full-size large gland heads, your adult, ready, ripened gland heads that are super juicy and ready to be harvested.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, have you ever tried pressing any fresh trichomes, like cutting the plant down,
Yeah.
throwing dry ice in it and sifting it that way?
Yeah, after you mentioned it, I actually tried some with that directly off the plant, and that came out really good. I felt like the yield wasn't quite as good as it would have been if I had let it cure even just 3 to
I
5
agree.
days.
I agree.
But it definitely tasted a lot different.
Tastes bitchin', but you don't get much, right?
It tastes very similar to Charas, and it's cleaner.
Yeah, that was the thing I was having problems with, was the yield on it. You weren't getting hardly anything to make it
This
worth doing.
pressing stuff, we're literally making it up as we go along. You know, we have to stay in touch.
Tell you what,
You know, I mean, we all have to pay
some of the best
attention
I've
to.
pressed is that shishka berry by far. That stuff, man, there's something in it that they got it down, and it's good stuff.
Well, it's just a really resi plant. If you're gonna do it for this kind of stuff, you just want a super resi plant. You don't want that super dense bud because it's not gonna flow. You want those fluffier. It's like some of your cushions and stuff
Literally.
get real fluffy, or some of your sativas are much fluffier. They
Yep.
press much better, and not only that, the better aeration, you get better resin production because it gets better airflow inside. So your total gland head weight and your total resin weight will be better with a large, fluffier. Well, not always, but
That's why hash plants are called hash plants, right?
yeah, hash plants are generally not those super dense nug plants. They're the fluffier, large, fluffy buds that just and lots of trichomes on the leaves, some on the stalks, some on the stems. Like that's a hash plant. Whereas like the bud growers are going just for those dense nugs that you see like in high times or in the dispensary that that they don't produce as well for just pure hash production. Not always.
Yeah. You know, another thing about sativa genetics is that they can literally reduce the sort of vegetative mass of the bud itself. So you know how indicas will generally have more leathery, thick leaves and stuff like that, and you get your sativas with your really thin, fine leaves. Well, this is one of the reasons why people love Blue Dream and a lot of these Blue Dream analogs, is because they have extremely reduced vegetative matter in there. And that's basically the same thing as increasing the THC or increasing the resin glands. You know, you same number of stalks all lying out on your leaf, and now you've just shrunk your leaf down. You can do that genetically. You can also do that, by withholding your nutrients and stuff towards the end of your cycle. But genetics, of course, is your the guy with the hammer, right? So, but it's definitely the genetic factor as well.
Absolutely. I've been watching a lot of videos and getting ready to order myself a washer for making bubble hash. I've been watching a bunch of Frenchie videos, and man, hours and hours of watching him. It's just, he's so awesome.
His stuff is awesome, but it takes him like 8 hours to process 2 to 4 pounds. Like,
absolutely,
it's very slow.
Very slow, but the final result, I guarantee, is without a doubt.
If he doesn't stem skills, nobody else will.
Have.
Yeah, I've smoked it with him after making it with him at his class. It was dope.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Anyone that out there hasn't taken one of his classes, he does classes all over the place. I cannot recommend it enough. His classes are amazing, and they're like between I think $200, $250. But it's a 1-day class. They give you food. You generally get to smoke a bunch of really good hash, and it's an amazing experience. He ends it with a big hookah full of hash that he made, and it's just fucking dope. So
Yeah, that was an honor having him on here and being able to talk with him.
Oh yeah, we'll get him on again too.
It's gotta be worth it just for the hash alone.
Oh, it is. It's worth it for the open
That's gotta
hash
be,
bar.
like better than like
Oh, yeah.
2 for 1 at the dispo, you know, like
Right? Open hash bar with electronic dab rigs that are like perfectly dialed in temperatures. It's like what? It's like you died and gone to heaven, and Frenchie's there. Well, what else do you want?
can you pay to go and then just stay at the bar? Just
Oh
be
yeah. So there's a guy that's gone to like 14 times to the one in Hogan and ever. He just comes there to get high and listen to the dollar
I'm
rig.
not here to learn shit. I'm just
Yeah.
here for dabs.
Yeah. And then there was like 3 people that they went there and were like, oh, I do dabs all the time, and they do like 3 of his, and they're just like out, and there's a couch there, like 2 big couches, and there was like 3 people that slept through half of his class, and it was like, oh man, that's funny, you like paid all this money, and you're just like assed out, you know.
I've had 2 of my non-smoker friends that have like decided that they're all of a sudden gonna try smoking, and then
Straight to
just
dabs.
comatose. Yeah, like one of them, like literally, like had to catch him and carry him to a place where he could lay down, passed out. It's hilarious.
So
I bet-
funny.
what have you been up to? What have you been up to, Marty?
Sorry.
I have mostly been working. I have the plans to reload, but I haven't actually reloaded them yet. All the outdoor gardens like needed attention because I've just mostly been doing like work, computer shit. So, but the elderberries just like gone nuts. It's all the way through the top of the gazebo, and like, yeah, it has so many flowers on it. It's insane. And so it's going nuts. And then I have tomatoes. I have grapes. The grape transplant that I put in last year is producing tons of fruit. And it's like basically its first actual season. It was an actual cutting, like a stick, like this big at the beginning of last year. And I don't even know how many grapes I'm going to get off of it this year. So, you know, it's really following that same trend in aquaponics where I'm finding, you know, like the elderberry that I put in last year, I got fruit the first year. And, you know, the guy at the co-op is like, you know, these don't produce any fruit for, you know, like 3 to 5 years. And the same thing with the grapes. It says on the little card thing that you get with it too. It's like, you know, don't expect any fruit for the first 3 years. Blueberries, same thing, you know, 2 to 3 years. They're a little shorter. And even the strawberries, I got some strawberry seed starts, not like clones, but like seed starts, and they were only like this tall. And you get like 10 of them in a pack. And on those, it said the same thing, you know, don't expect any fruit in the first year. My daughter's science experiment had 4 strawberries in 60 days. And so it was, you know, like everything just sort of follows that same thing where it, you know, I feel like it starts producing fruit sooner than traditional gardening methods. And so I have grapes, tomatoes, elderberries, raspberries, the blackberries bushes that like started in my backyard. I just put a like big tomato cage around them and started growing those up. Those are flowering like crazy. What else do I have going on out there? We have lemon cucumbers. I'm growing those. And again, the lemon cucumbers I grew in the aquaponic system last year were like the best ones I've ever had. And definitely tasted different than the ones I had in the ground. So
We grew some at the Ouroboros last year that were, or Ken grew some that were like these tiny little things that were maybe like double the size of your thumbnail, like these super tiny little things, and they were like bite sized, but they were more addictive than any potato chip you've ever had. They were like the right amount of water and sweetness and cucumber flavor to like where it wasn't overwhelming with cucumber, and it was just addictive. It had a little flower on the end that had some like nectar on it that was sweet, and they were literally probably the most addictive vegetable I've ever had. It was so good.
Yeah, lemon cucumbers are kind of like that, but they grow like I got some big one, like softball size ones last year, and they're, you know, they're a cucumber, but they're round and they look like a lemon. They're yellow, and they're just delicious. Like they're a really sweet cucumber, as opposed to bitter. You know, some of the greener ones, I feel like, you know, it's definitely got a distinct flavor. And so I got some of those going on the front porch. That's got raspberries in it and more tomato. I have so many tomatoes, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to like start giving them away or something. My strawberry patch in the ground is also going nuts too. I've been feeding it with tank water, and I made a cannabis ferment. So I had just a bunch of like green plant material. I don't remember what happened. I think stuff I cut off maybe for bugs or something. Can't remember. And so I made a ferment out of that with just labs and like maybe 2 or 3 week old flour. Like not cut flour, but like only 2 to 3 weeks into flour stuff that I cut down. I think I cut out a plant that fell over. I don't remember what it was, but I had quite a bit of it. So I threw it all in a bucket and and made a fermented plant extract. So an FPE, threw in some labs or some Bokashi brand in this case, which had lactobacillus in it, and let it ferment for about maybe a week or so. And then fed it to the strawberry patch, and I fed it to the grape, and just everything just took off. Nice and green, grew fast. The strawberries threw tons of flowers. I had like, in maybe like a little 4x4 area, we picked like 50 strawberries. It's crazy. And there's still a whole bunch of them out there. So that's all the stuff that's outside. Indoors, I still need to reload the indoor cannabis. The cover crop is nuts, though. I have like spinach is huge, and all the cover crop that I had going from the last time when I pulled out those big plants just exploded. So when I harvested the cannabis, everything growing underneath, although I have lettuce and mustard and all kinds of different greens that I use as a, you know, like a cover crop, and it just exploded. So I had tons of that. So I kind of clear cut it all down, throw it in the food processor, and freeze it into butter cubes. So then I can, when I'm cooking, I just toss them in, and you have some nice greens and butter to, you know, go with your chicken or rice or whatever you're having. Good stuff. So I need to reload the indoor. I have the plants, the cuts like I got. I'm still experimenting with different setups like dual root zone pots. So I'm keeping the Gorilla Glue as kind of my standard, like the one that I've grown it in each of my last 3 indoor grows, I think it is. So by like changing the lights and different size dual root zone pots and things like that, I want it to be sort of the baseline, but I don't want to just grow it because you get tired of anything growing all the time. So I have a cut of Grape Stomper that I'm going to put in there, as well as will be my other strain that I grow this time. So those need to get set up, and I'm going to do those in, I don't know what size they are. I'll have to check and see, maybe good size dual root zone pots, you know, with a couple of different mixes underneath the LED and the ceramic metal halide again. So we'll see how that goes. Steve, you there?
Yeah, sorry, it was like skipping for a minute or something. All of a sudden you were talking and you talked fast for a second and then it caught up or whatever. I guess I had a lag spike.
Good.
That was awesome. So, what's new with you, Mr. Green Jeans?
Me, yeah. We're moving over here. I have a big pile of stuff that I'm trying to press, you know, making all this medicine, and, you know, from last year's Oreo harvest, that I had this friend that grew that gigantic Oreo plant, and there's a couple more in the ground this summer, so there's going to be some more huge ones. I don't know if we're going to somebody might set a state record, I was thinking, because that plant, that plant is really big. George is my friend that was last summer, the one that I'm pressing right now. I think, I want to say close to 10 pounds maybe. But I think he was nowhere near what it could have been. He thinks so too.
Honestly, there's people
He was
like
saying his limitation, he probably didn't give it enough water, But anyway, watering. Everybody has trouble with watering. I've gotten a couple of emails, and I think that's, in the last couple of weeks, people asking me about watering. And I was thinking that's kind of an interesting subject to talk about watering outside, because nobody ever gives cannabis enough water. Well, especially not indoors. They do if they're growing it obviously hydroponically or aquaponically, then they're getting enough water. But if they're growing in containers, a lot of times they don't get enough water, do they? And outdoors, watering's like the high kung fu of growing. It's like the first thing you learn. Maybe it's the easiest thing, right? But maybe it's the hard thing too. Maybe it's the thing that really requires a lot of concentration. I was thinking about my grandmother when I was growing up, and one time I was standing there. You're really impatient. You're 8 years old. I'm watering this big tomato plant or something, and I'm like, is that enough water? And she's like, no, it needs more. Well, how do I know? How do I know what it's done? I'm really impatient. I'm standing there. Oh, come on, how do I know I've given enough water? And she says, well, imagine, she says, the root ball is the same size as the top is. How big is the top of this tomato plant? She says, look at the top of the tomato plant. Now give it enough water until you imagine that you've put enough water in there to match that amount that you see on the top. So you're trying to water. And then she says, don't give it more than that. Give it about that much water. So, and I remember another time my grandmother said, the rule of watering is as thoroughly as possible, as infrequently as possible. What does that mean? Well, I guess, what she meant by that was to water as much as possible, but then to wait. Why infrequently? Because you want the roots to grow down. You want the roots to grow and to reach for that water that you've given them. So if you water again too soon, then you're not necessarily encouraging that root growth. So you want to time that next watering the right amount. And then you're looking at the kind of water, the kind of dirt that you have outdoors. Your soil that you have is really variable. Here in California, in the Southern California, we have really sandy soil. And the water, when I water, the pattern that the water goes into the ground is kind of like a bullet like this, right? The water is going to go down. It's going to soak the ground in this sort of inverted shape like this. It's going to go down, and it's going to go down, but it's not going to necessarily go out. If you live somewhere in the Midwest and you have very clay soil, your water might go out like this and spread way, way out and not hardly go down much at all. So the pattern that the water is going to go in the soil is going to be really different depending on what kind of water you have. What kind of soil you have. And the getting your plants thoroughly watered, that's the whole thing. This is probably why my friend was only able to grow 10 pounds on that Oreo plant. Only, I know, but it probably could have done a lot bigger because it had the genetics. It kind of wanted to grow. It's a real water hungry plant, and he probably didn't give it enough water. And everyone who's got plants outdoors now, make sure you give them enough water. It's hot out there. They're really hungry and they're thirsty and they need lots of water. So imagine that root ball. Water the whole thing. Because water is the limitation of yield. Water limits the yield of everything. Apples, we think it's nutrients, right? Everybody's going, oh, it's the nutrients that not really. It's the water. And this is one of the reasons why aquaponics. It works so, or not why hydroponics necessarily, gives you as much yield. People are always saying, "Oh, I'm going to use hydro to grow my cannabis instead of in containers because hydro out yields." Well, the main reason why containers don't yield as much is because it's real hard to water containers. About 1 week after you stick a plant in that container, it's root bound, right? And now it needs much more water. It's going to need that. You're going to have to stick that pot in a runoff tray. I mean, I use huge runoff trays. I got bowls underneath my plants, but that's because you guys have watched the podcast before, and I have these tiny little pots, right? So it's practically hydroponic. I mean, it's a teeny little container. The plant's roots are really constricted. So he needs a lot of water. There's no way that container can hold as much water. But even in big, and this is the reason also why cannabis growers years ago, 20 years ago, I used to rail against taking a plant from an 8-ounce cup and sticking it immediately into a 2-gallon pot, right? Guys would go from a pot up in gigantic increments. And that's not a great idea because for many reasons, because you're not managing the root ball. You have no idea where the roots are. You don't know when next to water. You're also preventing a whole lot of oxygen from going down. Your roots are going to go hit the bottom first, and they're going to be oxygen starved. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you need to use incremental pot ups. I shouldn't just go small to big. But the thing about going small to big is that it kind of solves that problem of not enough water. This is the whole problem of cannabis needs so much water. So if you're going to follow me, you're going to try to do like Mr. Green Jeans, which I don't recommend, and try to go from a small to a little bit bigger and bigger, you're going to have to make sure you give them a lot of water. And these are this is one of the things I've learned from having to do things the way I do it, is that cannabis is a serious water user. It's only a C3 plant. It's not a C4. But it can suck water, right? It doesn't it? It just eats water like you can't believe. So,
I don't think I really understood how much they drank until you saw in an aquaponic system how much a flowering plant will drop the water level in your tank.
Or on a hot day.
Phenomenal.
On a hot day, I've watched. A big plant will drink half a gallon to a gallon easy on a hot day in a greenhouse.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that visual representation of that really helps, set that home. Like it's a, significant amount of water that it needs to be able to take up. And I think you're right in terms of why aquaponics is successful, especially with newer and experienced growers, is that you're keeping a healthy root system that has access to as much water as it needs. And that
you're killing a couple of birds with one stone, and really doing it in a very efficient and a classic organic gardening method. This is what I was saying before, is like aquaponics is kind of like the organic version of hydroponics.
Right.
That's wrong, because hydroponics is completely going in another direction. Hydroponics is an attempt to control everything.
Right.
Which is sort of a pipe. It's kind of a pipe dream anyway. It's like
so low, you go down to 5.8, and you wipe out all of your bacterial life that outcompetes all of the bad stuff that you don't want. So you're just wiping out all the bad stuff and not keeping any of the good stuff, which is why I feel like it's not as easy for newer growers, that they're not going to, they have that sort of learning curve to get over also, whereas you don't have that. And I think it's really just old thinking. Like, I think if, if the old timers knew that they could just throw some fish in their hydro tank and do a couple of things, they would have done it a long time ago. They would have never spent all that money on nutrients and had all those hydro issues.
Well,
I've fixed up a number of hydroponic setups merely by putting a biofilter into them. I take like a a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket or some kind of bucket, and I make an open, a gravel, like an under gravel filter with a PVC thing on the bottom and some kind of bubbler in it, that takes and circulates everything through that bucket of gravel, and you can just reach down to your reservoir and pull it out. You know what I mean?
Sure,
And you stick that in any regular, Kool-Aid style hydroponic setup, and it's going to improve it immediately. It's it's going to solve all their problem. And then they want to put. Can I put molasses in my hydro setup? Come on, Okay, yeah, put molasses in.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
it's funny. So it depends. So if you're gonna put it into a live system, we learned at Chris Trump's thing that you don't want to put, molasses is better for live application, but if you're going to use for ferments, for like FPJ or for labs or any of that, you want to use brown sugar or unrefined cane sugar. Works much better because of how it locks out the oxygen from the water, which I did not know.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I really want to say, and for everybody growing outdoors, is to remember that water, especially, you're going outdoors, you're going in the ground, you got your 5-pounder from Green Jeans at the end of your cul-de-sac at the end of the summer, and I don't know what the big corporations are going to do about that. They're screwed, But so for all of you guys that got that big old 5-gallon, that big old 5-pounder coming at the end of the summer, just give it a lot of water. It needs a lot of water every day, and don't skip a day. Don't, because the water is your yield. That's how much you're going to get at the end. In other words, think about the nutrients, worry about the nutrients, but really don't forget the nutrients don't even get there unless the water, right? The water is the vehicle. And it is the bulk.
It's too. It's not. It's important in veg too. Like not. It's growing at such a rapid rate that it needs that uptake, and then it just transitions into flower where it's still growing fast, just different.
I would say that vegging is the most important period of growing cannabis. When you're growing it, it's like that's before you bake the cake. It's when you're mixing it and you're putting it. When you're vegging it, you're preparing it. And a really well-vegged plant's got most of its nutrients stored for its flowering, and doesn't all small. I've noticed it depends on the size of the plant. A smaller plant, a more indica plant with more leathery type leaves and stuff, and it doesn't get that big. Those ones may desire to eat more nutrients, during flowering, maybe up to peak flowering. But a lot of sativa leaning genetics might not even want it. They'd rather go on their stored nutrients, kind of, you know what I mean? They want to just move the stored nutrients around. They kind of don't really want any more at the roots, maybe, or not much. Certainly not past peak flowering. It's just like, no more, please. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's genetics again. It varies. You got to know your plant.
And outdoor too, it's not like you don't have. Obviously, it's gonna especially if you're growing in the ground, right? If you're container growing outside, then that's a little different. Yeah. That's kind of like.
Oh, you definitely need nutrients, right? But in the ground, the plant's probably going to get them. The water is more important to me. If you're in the ground, I don't even care if you're in the desert.
I agree. And so I think that you can see that. I've done both. Like I have raised beds in the ground, and I had a container plant, and I've had aquaponics. So they all a little bit different. And I've like my raised beds that are in the ground, for instance, I will feed like around a big plant. I don't even like. Some people want to get in on the stalk and get all around there in the middle. All around it and around the outside to it, like you're talking about, encourage that growth out. And so
that reminds.
Yeah, go ahead.
That reminds me. One more thing I wanted to say about the pattern of the way the water goes down. So in sandy soil, like we have here in Southern California, when I water, the water goes down in the ground like a bullet. It's very sandy, right? So it's going to just kind of go down almost like a column from where it is, rather than spreading out. So So what I have to do is make a trough around the plant. So as the plant, like the Oreo plant, for example, it doesn't grow up much. It kind of grows like a ball. It kind of grows as out as much as it does up without pruning or anything. So you have to keep on. You build a berm. You know, you you make a sort of a, what do you call that? A flood trench or an irrigation pool around it, and you have to keep moving that outwards so that the water goes to the outside edge, like Marty was saying, putting the nutrients more out, which is also encouraging the roots to go. You know, because that's another thing. You know, you also, why sometimes you don't want to necessarily put a lot of nutrients into your soil, is because that doesn't necessarily encourage the roots to grow. You know, the roots are like, well, we're good right here. There's a lot of nutrients. Where do I need to go? Plenty of water, plenty of nutrients. I'm good. You know, so
that's one of the things I found fascinating about Chris Trump when he was talking here and on some of the videos that he's posted on his YouTube channel, and talking about how, you know, bacteria dominated soil versus fungally dominated soil, and how different things will grow there or even trigger different insect responses. I don't know if you saw the video where he was talking about that, where the aphids were just all over the weeds that were growing right there, because it had he had changed the dynamic of the soil to be more fungal, and those weeds weren't going to survive there, so the aphids were just all over it and eating the shit out of it. And right next to it was like his healthy asparagus plant that didn't have a single aphid on it anywhere, because it's growing in its naturally balanced environment. It wants the fungally dominated soil, and that the evidence towards kind of like some of the things that even like Paul Stamens talks about, where you have the fungal networks signaling the rest of the insect world and different things, and essentially sort of like creating its own reality. The fungal networks are like determining what grows in its environment so that it can continue to spread. That it's like an intelligent response.
It's not only like a telephone service, but it's like a translation service. Yeah, you know, it's like fungus tell a different what they're talking about.
So they actually did a study. I forget there's a woman that did a study. I can't remember what her name was, about the trees in the Northwest, the Douglas firs, I think it was, about how they're this huge connected network, and the oldest trees are the biggest hubs of these mycorrhizal networks to connect all these different types of mycorrhizae with all the local trees. And what they'll do is, if a tree is dying, it will dump all of its nutrients out of itself over to the neighboring trees and benefit them. And they actually, the big old trees will allocate a large amount of their resources from their root system through the fungal pathways to the youngest plants in the area. The youngest plants get the most nutrients fed to them from the largest plants. So the large old plants are nurturing the little plants that are hundreds of feet away via the root system. And that's something that has never been documented until very recently, when they used what they did was they injected this type of radioactive carbon gas into the plant. Hogmaster, I'm going to mute you just because of your background audio. Thank you. I don't mean to be rude. It's just you have a white noise on your thing. Mr. Green Jeans, you have a little bit of it as well. There we go. Okay. So what they did was they injected the trees with this radioactive gas, and they were able to follow the carbon isotopes from that giant old tree and how it fed that through the root system, through the fungal network, and then into the neighboring baby plant, young plant, and then detect it in that plant and then all the young plants around it, and how it didn't share that with the older plants. It was really interesting how the old trees didn't need to have that kind of sharing, and it was only if they were dying that they ended up discovering that they would move nutrients. So it was really cool to see how the whole forest is constantly talking to each other and behaving almost as one organism and trying to share and move resources and water and other things just to benefit itself. And this is the kind of things that we need to kind of replicate in our aquaponic systems. This is why we're all for probiotics, why we're all for using things like the shrimps and the nematodes and the worms and all these different and the ferments and other things to help build that. And I think there was a lot of work in the early aquaponics where they didn't focus on that enough, and especially with the work with lactobacillus and FPJs and a lot of hybridizing the Korean natural farming soil stuff into aquaponics has really allowed a lot of members of this panel to really accelerate their plant growth. I don't know how many of you guys here have also worked with that, and you guys want to talk at least on the different methods that you guys are using?
I only use fish water. I just water my plants with fish. I'm not a professional aquaponist like you guys.
No, but it's good that we have some soil people here. It's you know, it's good for the difference. That's why we're trying to get more of your soil guests on.
That's kind of why I've been doing a lot of plants that are several in one pot to see how they react to each other. And I find that it kind of does something similar to that. The last 2 grows that I've done with 2 plants in one pot have just done outstanding together. So I figured this time I'd go with 3, and they're just babies right now. They're 10 days old, but they're about 3 inches tall, and they're communicating with each other, and you can see it day by day. It's insane. And I'm actually just growing them in ProMix BX and haven't fed them any nutrients yet. Getting ready to here tomorrow.
Awesome. We
I was
God.
seems to me like I always thought plants in the same container were not very friendly with each other. It makes me, you know, we're talking about plants being nice
so that's
to each other.
I'm glad you bring that up. I can actually I've listened to and talked to a couple of different people, both Dr. Faust and a couple of other people recently. So brassicas will actively Mr. Green Jeans, can I I'm gonna mute you for a second.
Mute me. Sorry.
I'll mute. Okay. There we go. Sorry. He just a little bit of white noise for some of us. Oh, there's Marty outside. With the brassicas are one of the handful of, they're about one of the 5 to 8% of plants that they know about that do not have a mycorrhizal network that is sustainable with the plants. So they're one of the only plants that doesn't have mycorrhizal networks. Now everything else does, and what they found is that first off, you'll hear originally that cannabis only hybridizes with that one type of mycorrhizae. You'll hear some people say that. In the last 1 to 2 years, they've discovered that there's actually quite a few other species that will happily cohabitate with cannabis roots. And not only that, it's not even so much doing that, it's so much having clover or grasses or what the hell is it called? Purslane or ice plant or some of these other really deep-rooted plants do a very good job at housing a wide, up to 16 to 18 different varieties of mycorrhizae, and those mycorrhizae will trade nutrients with the ones on your cannabis plant and take the stuff that's produced in the plant. And actually, there's a lot of work done now with cannabis on how much cannabis can uptake genes from local plants nearby, absorb their terpenes for insect resistance. And that might actually be why, like, the mythical strawberry kush that Kyle Cushman, as the myth or as the story goes, Kyle Cushman grew for however long in a strawberry patch and absorbed that. There might actually be a lot of truth to that with the what's it called, the
Genetic drift. You're talking about genetic drift.
No,
right?
not genetic drift. There's a name for it where it remembers the previous generation. Damn it. I'll think of it as soon as at some point soon. There's a name for it anyways. But there actually might be a lot of truth to it. And if you think about it evolutionarily wise, it would make a lot of sense for cannabis to absorb terpenes. It already has, it can easily produce a psychotic amount of different terpenes. So far, we have over over 210 that they've documented, and it's probably over 400 realistically different terpenes. So it makes a lot of sense that it acquired that level of terpenes by adopting ones genetically via the root system, which is a very common trait for plants to have, where they can actually take genes from nearby plants, put them into their own genetics, and then just take certain snippets of it to make themselves better. That's the reason why you have, say, GMO or Roundup resistant weeds. That's the exact mechanism on how that came to be. But cannabis is one of the few plants that can, or one of the plants that can actually do that mechanism as well. And there's a specific name for that, and it's escaping me at the moment just because I'm a little bit high, and I can't remember the name of it. But
It happens.
I've heard genetic drift, unless there's another name for it. You're talking about the exchange of genetic material from one species to another, just
no.
because in the same environment, right?
No. There's a name for it where it can absorb the genes from and then pass it on to the next generation based on the environment.
Oh,
There's a specific name for that.
Oh.
Yeah, where it'll remember its environment or its things, and it has to do with
I
that.
should know. I don't know that.
Hold on, I'm looking in my notes here. I think I had it written down in this particular notes from my class I was in recent. Not class, but seminar.
That's really cool because I love the idea of thinking about culture and how culture we can actually pass on acquired traits, and we can't do that evolutionarily but with culture we pass on acquired traits.
Well, that's the whole. That's
such
about
a cool thing.
phenome.
It almost seems like other animals, like maybe culture was invented by some species of animal somewhere, and it just started to spread. Maybe.
Well, no. It's like your terroir. Your whole entire environment that makes your phenome different than your genome. It's
exactly
that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Epigenetics. That's it. Epigenetics.
Hypogenetic. Yes.
No,
hypogenetic. Speed.
Epigenetics.
Oh, epigenetic. Yes.
Epigenetic, where it can take genes from plants nearby, incorporate it into it, and pass it on to its offspring. Epigenetics.
Oh, I've read that word a million times. I don't know why I couldn't give it to you. I wasn't.
That's fine. I'm just a lot of weed today.
But that's interesting. It's almost like I'm imagining plants having culture, and the cannabis plant is sitting there in the strawberry patch and is jealous.
Think about it. Cannabinoids and terpenes both are found in a wide range of other plants, and maybe that's how it came to be that it has all those other ones. Is that it just acquired them via the root system, which makes a lot of sense. A lot of plants produce limonene. There's a lot of plants that produce pinene. There's a lot of plants that produce myrcene. Look at the big compounds that we know about.
Many of the terpenes.
A lot of plants that produce that. No wonder it adapted to that. And if you look at it from that sense, it makes a lot of sense that that's actually how it came to be.
It does. And you think, if the plant has some kind of a personality, you figure cannabis is probably pretty proud of its ability to do all those terpenes too.
Well, and then look at the diversity shit. We've been growing this shit since the 60s, realistically, on any kind of large scale indoors, at least just in the U.S. And look at how many varieties we have. Probably 50,000 varieties in the United States, or 60,000 varieties, something like that.
I'm here to tell you, folks, from experience, I'm 61 years old. A lot has changed. It's no joke.
No, but see what I'm saying, though, as far as just the genetic diversity, and look how much it's evolved and how quickly it's evolved. I mean, they showed that with the Phylos project when they did that gene study, and how wide range it is, and how there's still a couple that they still don't know.
I just hope they don't.
Some weird gene pool.
Hope they don't forget about the old genes and lose them.
Well, no. So it's an ongoing project, and not only that. So Breeder Steve is also they're doing genetic analysis on all the. He was talking about that too, where they're doing the gene analysis and all that because they want to understand all this stuff and they want to keep archiving it. The other reason to archive it is so that you can put it into public domain and prevent any of these asshole companies from patenting any of it.
Yep.
Totally. Yep. What's his name? DJ Short's really big on that. He has that whole manifesto.
And I was gonna get on what is it, Subcool? I was trying to get him on the show. I found out that he was one of the big proponents of trademarking genetics, and I was like, no, we're not going to have him on. So it was that easy. I publicly crucified in person. What's his name? The dipshit with the cheese strain thing. He showed up to a thing in SoCal, and I was like, no, I am not going to meet you and not let you not hear about that bullshit. Like, get the fuck out of here. You didn't even develop the strain, and you're going to try and patent it? Like, get the fuck out of here. Go do something. Like,
Wow,
actually
I thought I was
develop
the
some work.
watchdog in this group. I
Oh,
thought I
hell
was the
no.
bouncer here.
Oh, hell no. If people are genuinely an idiot, I'll go call them out in person. I don't give a fuck.
We'll have Steve hammer him.
Trying to patent other people's genetics is pure bullshit. He didn't even develop it. That's the thing. Like, you know, at least you developed some genetics, or at least some of these other people developed some genetics. Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't not like Subcool, but I wouldn't have him on the show because he patents use for patenting genetics, and that's to me one of the lines in the sand for me in the industry. And I think, yeah, you should be rewarded for your hard work developing something. Sell your strains, sell your genetics and stuff, but there's no reason to patent it and screw the whole industry up and hurt people trying to get medicine. I mean, look at the dip. Look, and I'll give you the shining example: the Stanley Brothers. The Stanley Brothers. They produce an inferior product that is a quarter as good as every of the high end CBD products on the market, and they act like they're God. And they have a lobby. They're good-looking brothers. They have a good story. They have a lobbyist group in Congress. They lobby local state things, but their stuff is trash. And they're selling snake oil, 75 milligrams in a bottle. I've seen for what, $60? I'm sorry, you're a piece of shit. You know what the going rate is for wholesale for CBD? Just so you guys are aware, a penny a milligram to 0.075 cents per milligram. So that's the going rate for milligram of CBD. So them charging you 75 or $60 for 75 milligrams is extortion on people that are sick. They're charging over 100% markup. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's a crime. Like what they're doing is literally a crime. They're bilking people that are sick, and it's wrong. And that's why you see so many successful CBD companies now making good products that actually work, that are legitimately dosed, that are legitimately priced, and they're just taking over the market. And they don't even need to have lobbyists and all the other happy horse shit, or try to push for, like, you know, them being the only legalized strain in the state, and some of the other, like, arguably criminal actions they've taken to try and force a monopoly on the market. And it's, if you look at it in the shape of monopoly laws or anti-competition laws in the United States, they would fall into criminality in that range. So they're complete bullshit. They have inferior products, and they stole their genetics from the company they were working for to begin with. So that's why I actively, like, just, I can't stand them, and I hate how much they're worshipped. And yes, they heal a lot of people, and I'm happy for anyone that gets relief or healing from them, but you're being ripped off, and you can get better products by people that aren't trying to make a buck out of the industry and are just trying to help people, or even people that are trying to make a buck but are just righteous about it, you know.
I think
not to rant on them too much, but like, they really did fuck up the industry a lot, and they really did a lot of evil things to this industry, and they need to be called out for it.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of us older guys have been in it a long time. I mean, I think it's strange when I hear somebody say, and when I hear people say, you know, feeling like the industry owes them things and things like that, because I feel quite the opposite. I mean, maybe this podcast is making me think and feel differently, but I really feel lucky to have had my relationship with Mary Jane. You know, I mean, I am so thankful, Mary Jane. You saved me 1,000,000 times over in my life. And for me to ask, you know, for more. For me to ask now, okay, now I want some money too. It makes me laugh to think about it.
Well, the arrogance to think that you're the only strain that can help anyone, and you're the only one that should really like the level of arrogance and just psychoticness that you even claim when you're talking about people that are dying and need this to survive. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing I can think of saying.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not in the spirit of the plan. It's not in the spirit of Mary Jane. You know what I mean? If you really spent a lifetime.
Well, look, I totally get it. We all need to make enough money to pay our bill. We talk about it weekly, how fucked the market is and how I'm 100% for people sustaining themselves and making money on this. But you don't have to charge 100+% markup. Like,
be kind.
Yeah, like that's not reasonable. Even with packaging, you know damn well they're not paying any more than say 33 to 45 cents per package. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
how do you feel about? Sorry.
I was just going to say. You go.
I was going to say, backtracking to the copy or trademarking deal. Like, what about trademarking for the sake of protecting from the assholes? Like the dude, the GG4 dude that was like, put it out, get it out there.
So if you're doing it for open source and stuff to protect it, I'm all for it. I mean, like the Phylos project, they're open sourcing all those genetics. If you donate to them, you're signing away those genetics, and that's now open source for the purpose of preserving the genetics, so that if there is a wonder drug or a miracle compound or a miracle combination that can cure cancer or do whatever, some pharmaceutical company can't push in and say, oh, well, we developed the only way to extract it, or that's the area to do it. Is there's process patents on some of this extraction stuff. That's where these fights are going to come down to it. I know we're looking to throw down some patents for some of our extraction stuff so we can protect it to keep it from being exploited, and then we're going to try to get it out to a whole shit ton of companies because we think it can do a lot for increasing safety in extraction labs and increasing terpene extraction as well at the same time. So two birds, one stone. It's safer, it's cheaper, it's scalable, and that's what. But we're not, it's not for the purpose of that. When you patent something like an extraction process, you also need to patent it for the sake of liability, and that someone can't claim that they were using your method and then blew themselves up because they did it wrong. And then, you know what I mean? So there's also, on the same hand, there's also protection from that as well on liability if someone does abuse your method and then claim that they followed what you were doing. See what I'm saying? Because you can say, no, here's the defined way that we teach. You see what I'm saying? So it's a two-sided thing, and some of the extraction stuff, to be honest with you, should be gated. I mean, you can kill yourself and anyone in the building next to you with some of the stuff that people do for extraction. Same thing with the CO2. You can kill everyone in that room or that building if that CO2
is dangerous.
4% of the room was CO2, and everyone's dead in that room.
Oh, right, of course.
4%.
Asphyxiated again.
4% from asphyxiation, and you won't know. You won't smell it. You won't notice it. You'll just all of a sudden you'll black out, and when you black out, you hit the ground where it's a better concentration of CO2, and now you're even more.
Just like you do in jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah, so you're just not going to get back up.
Curtains come down.
Yeah. So that's the dangerous thing about people are running up to 20,000 psi with these CO2 systems. What are you going to do if that hose blows off?
Yeah.
Like if that hose explodes or literally any kind of catastrophic pressure loss, you may not even have time to run out of the room if you don't take a deep breath immediately. Like,
yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. That's literally a serious situation that has happened at CO2 extraction facilities already. Yeah. And to me, I couldn't sleep at night if I have to worry about that every day. So we developed a whole other method that you can shoot the thing with a 50 caliber round, incendiary round, and it won't. You take a blowtorch to it, and it won't catch fire or explode. It will lose pressure. It is pressurized, but it is not a flammable extraction method. It is not a hydrocarbon. You can't explode it, and it will be something that we're bringing to market. A handful of people that had a chance to smoke the oil. I think actually, Dutch, you had a chance to smoke some of that oil.
Did I smoke the oil? I know I've had the powder.
I'm not sure. If you were at the cup at the EDC cup, I was dabbing everybody out.
I probably had some. I remember having the powder. The powder's what put me under. I had like 4 of those powders, and I was just smoking a bunch of weed too. And I remember by the end of the night, just sitting there and going, "Dude, this is really I was like, I haven't had. I could sit here and smoke weed all night and not feel like that. You know, like I was in it, and yeah."
Yeah, man, that shit creeps up on you.
I think I went home at like 11, and the party was still jamming hard, and I was just like, I gotta go. I need to
go. Speaking of which, you want to tell everybody about what's coming up soon here in Half Moon?
Yeah, the Science of Aquaponic Regenerative Cannabis Conference. Sorry, I'm just pulling a dab out. I don't even have the dates in front of me.
It's July 16th through the 20th.
July 16th through the 20th in Half Moon Bay. It's basically a week of aquaponics education, advanced, extraordinaire. I've been telling people I wish that anything like this, either for soil or for aquaponics or whatever, was around. 10 years ago, 2 years ago. It'll be a lot of help. Basically, we're going to start out with the foundation of soil life, because people growing cannabis and aquaponics are growing dual root zone system, or I should say high nutrient feeding plants. Most people are using the dual root zone system.
That's fine. It's fine here. It's everywhere else we got to worry about.
So we're going to start out with Dr. Elaine Ingham, who is by far the world's chief in soil microbes and how they interplay. And so she's going to do 3 days. 2 days will be kind of talking about that, and 1 day will be a microscope course in there. So we're looking at the microorganisms, identifying them, quantifying them, which is a really important part. Just because you have a few of them doesn't really mean the whole party is rocking. But you want to know exactly how many for when you're brewing teas, in your soil, in your fish water. So that'll give a good foundation, and then we're going to move into nutrients with Chris Trump and Dr. Faust, both who have been on the show recently. They approach the same problem with slightly different versions. Both are very economical and environmentally safe, and I'm really digging on Chris's. I'm really digging on both those guys. Honestly, I've been spending time talking to both of them, and I just get off the phone so amped up. Chris is like the guru of doing it cheap, finding products that you have locally, indigenous organisms and indigenous products, and creating nutrients out of there. And Dr. Faust is like a wealth. He's like an encyclopedia. He's like, oh, well, back in 1984, I actually did a project on wasabi, and him and I started talking about wasabi for like a half an hour, and I was like ready to go out and start planting wasabi in my property. Afterwards, I was so excited. So that'll be a day of that, half day with each of those guys, and then we'll do a full day with Suzanne Wainwright Evans, the Bug Lady Consulting, and she is a beneficial insect guru. She is in love with bugs, and she's taught me and a lot of us a lot on how to use them and how to use them well. We don't just buy lacewings. We don't just buy ladybugs. Don't buy ladybugs. And so on and so on, and how you apply them, where you get them. They're all very crucial things. And so she can talk for 12 hours on this stuff and still have more to say.
On that note, there was a guy in the bar the other day who was like, oh man, I go up and I vacuum up the ladybugs, and dude, I'll sell you ladybugs super cheap. And I was just like, dude, I literally like talk about how bad of a person you are at my classes. Like, thank you for the offer, but like I literally cannot like even continue this conversation. Like I literally, it was like at the bar the other day. It was probably like last week or a week and a half. It was totally blew me away. It was so funny because I didn't even know that until I talked to her. Maybe a little bit of ignorance on my part, but
it's crazy. I mean, because all these things that I were just talking about are fairly common terms, KNF.
Yep.
Everyone knows about Humisolve and BioAg. I've been using that product since day one. I still use it. And so they kind of, I feel like people think they get it when I'm talking to them. They're like, oh no, I buy beneficials. They'll rattle off a company that they buy from. I'm like, oh, you buy from a third party. So you're getting your bugs sent to a third party. They're repackaging it, putting their label on it, and sending it to you. And you have some person just giving you their advice on their
Actually,
experience.
let me bring that up. I'll pull up the list. Actually, I shared with you the early draft, eh?
Yeah.
Do you want to? So I'm working on a master list that will be released later in the year to the public. It'll also, I'm going to go over a lot of this in my book that I'm working on this year too. But there's a master list that I'm working on for helping people decide for pest control. And I actually got a couple people. Charlie Schultz and a couple other people, a couple other universities are also going to help cross-reference this with us. So it won't just be me. I'm not going to coming out claiming I'm the world's expert. But I want to let you guys know that we do have some pretty cool stuff coming up soon on regards to that and trying to make this shit public. And the reason why is, look, aquaponics is going to be regulated by the USDA in the next 5 years, and we have two options. We can sit back and let them decide all this shit for us, or we can get out ahead and we can recommend what we think needs to be used and not used for cannabis, for smokable products and non-smokable products and plants grown in aquaponics, and just try to head that off. Otherwise, they're just going to decide for us, and we're not going to like it like they did for cannabis. So I'm working on this project behind the scenes with a couple of people. So a sneak peek, but Koppert, KOPPERT.com, www.koppert.com is a great reputable insect producer. We also have Biologico, so BIOLOGICCO.com. That's BIOLOGICCO.com. They're also a reputable insect producer. We have, hold on, this.
And these are insectaries. They grow the bugs.
Yes, they raise the bugs. They're not a reseller.
There's only 6 of them, I believe, in the whole world.
Yep.
And only one in our country, in California.
Yep. So, sure. So the next one is Applied Bionomics. APPLIEDBIO-NOMICS.com. That's APPLIEDBIO hyphen or minus, depending on your region, NOMICS.com. And they're, I think they're big on nematodes, I think, if memory serves me right. And then you have BioBest, BIOBEST group, GROUPE.com. That's BIOBEST GROUP.com. And they have quite a wide range of insects, probably a ludicrously wide range. You have betterplants.basf.us. That's betterplants.basf.us. They're the more nematode producer. I knew one of them was just nematodes. And then the last one is insectary.com. It's INSECTARY.com. That's INSECTARY.com. And
that's Beneficial Insectary, the one in Northern California.
Yep.
I just want to shout out them because they're more local. I think that us in the States, especially if you're in California, you should be buying stuff from local people, and they have excellent customer service. They're actually the only ones I've dealt with in terms of insectaries. I used to buy from third-party vendors. And but I'm super stoked on them. They have a West Coast rep, Kelly Vance, who is a cannabis farmer. He has commercially grown cannabis, and he's super knowledgeable. Suzanne, promotes him, and he travels around and he'll work with you and come to your farm and set up an IPM for the way you're working. And it's a lot cheaper to work with the beneficials on on an IPM program when you're getting them every week or every other week. and sometimes that's hard financially, you know, to do that, to keep that whole thing rolling. But and
Well,
actually, it's cheaper in the long run, you know, because if you
per
get yourself in a
application.
bad position, you're spending a lot. You know, you're like, oh man, these beneficials suck, dude. I have to spend, you know, $600,000 on these beneficials to deal with this huge clusterfuck problem I had, when I can go buy some Avid for $80, you know, and deal with this thing. So it's one of the things though that you can really, if you just stay on it, and
Yep.
it's a lot cheaper in the long
And
run,
if-
and it's effective. Like I've
Yep.
taken implants with spider mites confidently. I just recently did it, and I threw a ton of stuff at it, and no spider mites. So
And if
Only way to fight
if you are
spider-mites.
if you are a cannabis like commercial scale only, do not pester her if you have a small grow. Commercial scale only, please support and reach out to her. Her name is bugladyconsulting.com. Her name is Susan Maynard Evans. And if you have a large scale grow, she is someone to reach out to. She's not the cheapest.
She charges. She's
charges,
well worth.
but she is the best on there is. She is a god in her field. So, you know, definitely reach out to her if you have a problem like that. Or she's also will do sometimes email her. Particularly, she's actually put out a request. If you have thrips on your cannabis, please take detailed pictures and send them to her. As best of the pictures as you can of the thrips. She's actually actively seeking out thrip pictures. So if you do have any, she did place that request last 2 times I've seen her. She was looking for thrips. She's actually found, what was it, the onion thrips? Hold on, I have this written down somewhere. The onion thrips and what was the other one? Onion thrips and potato thrips, I think it was, were the 2 that were attacking cannabis, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the Western flower thrips like everyone thinks it is.
Everyone thinks, right?
Yeah, it's actually the onion thrips that are the problem, which is something that I had never heard of before talking to her, and that I think is something that's very critical, especially when you're trying to treat the damn thing. You know, it can be hard if you're trying to treat it, and you know, it might not respond to that. So, if you are looking at thrip treatments, you definitely aim for onion thrips.
And that's a super, you know, another important note. I'm just kind of, as we're talking, remembering
Sure.
the thing I learned. I actually lost all my notes when I got a new phone, but a lot of us we're not able to identify the different species, or like broad mites or russet mites. The California is dumping them all over the highways, and you know, it's like, and yes, that's true, but they're totally different species than what's attacking our plants. And she brought that up, and she can identify the different species, and you know, say that, and you treat the problem differently with the different species. What are you guys? Am I saying it wrong?
Can you elaborate on this a little bit more? Wait a minute. You're talking about something. I want to know more about this, because everybody's been asking me about the broad mites, and I've even been up in Mendocino the last couple of seasons. Talk more.
So let me just tell you, the first thing that I heard from Suzanne when she talked about broad mates was, she goes, well, 95% of all the grows I go to in Cali have broad mites and don't know it.
And hemp russet.
And hemp russet.
And the hemp russet are the scary ones.
They're the real scary ones because they're so fucking small. They're so fucking small.
They're different. So there's the hemp russet mite.
So broad mites are large. So broad mites.
They're only about a third. They're about half the size of a regular mite. You can see them.
They look like an aphid. They look like an aphid. They're green. And the other thing is that broad mites are tribal. They cruise around on the plant in a tight little group. I've seen this a couple of times on people on doing consulting. They cruise around like a gang, so that they'll stay together, and they won't be spread all over the plant. They stay together. They don't like to be too far away from the group. They're like a herd. And the other thing is that, so if you have a cannabis leaf, and normally it's like this, it'll bend down, and it'll droop over and on itself. Like it'll bend down, and it'll fold in half down, and they'll all be up in that seam to stay dry. They hate moisture more than a lot of the other ones. They do much better in drier climates than they do in the humid ones. They don't do well if it's bone dry, but they do prefer to be a little bit more on the drier side than on the wetter side. like about
But don't
70.
they also prefer more newer growth? Don't they prefer the newer growth than the bigger sun
No,
leaves?
I've found them on a lot more on the wider leaves. Maybe I'm not noticing the damage on the smaller leaves, but I found they almost prefer the older leaves. I've noticed with the broad bite specifically, but that's just been my experience. It doesn't mean that that's true for the whole, you know, experience of broad mites.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because I've been up, a couple of growers that were growing my genetics this last couple of seasons up in Mendocino, and helping them out with trying to figure out the broad mites, and man, it seems like there's a lot of misinformation going around, because I have another friend, an indoor grower, who was, and we lent him the microscope, and he just seemed like like that movie, was it Bugs or whatever, and he just seemed like he was super paranoid, and he's freaking out. I've got broad mites, and
Yeah, half
he was
the
saying
industry does.
he was saying they're going inside they
plant?
go inside the plant or something. Or maybe these
don't-
are the russet mite.
I
No?
can't speak to that.
That's
That's
totally paranoid to me. I was like,
definitely
wait a minute.
that would definitely be a
They're
question to
able to.
ask. So Susan Wainwright has agreed to come on the show. I haven't got a chance to schedule a week with her. She said she's happy to on a week where she's home, and there hasn't been a Thursday where she's been at her house in a little
I
while.
got a
So,
lot of questions. I'll be
but
prepared.
when she comes on, any insect question, any beneficial insect question, any mold question, she's your person. She's literally the most knowledgeable person on IPM. If she doesn't know and Charlie Schultz doesn't know, nobody knows. The two of them have seen everything.
To me, I got the spider. I don't care about spider mites. I don't give a shit. I do water dips, man. They hate humidity. I just take the plants in and I dip them straight in water, and hit them every 3 days, man. They're in hell. They can't even catch up. They'll never catch up. They might catch up during flowering.
So,
But I mean,
Hogmaster,
you could take a
Hogmaster, can I share the picture you sent me?
I could take a plant that was dead, was covered with webs that most people would throw away, and it's 1 day from harvesting, and I can dip that thing in water, and the next day you will harvest it. It won't lose a single trichome. It'll be beautiful. You know how many people have lost? Oh my God, what are those? You're scaring me.
See,
what is that?
See that? See how those are large, round, and small? What are those? Does anyone here know what those are off the bat before I answer the question?
No, answer the question. I don't know what those are.
Those are eggs, but those are very obvious what they are. Does anyone know what they are?
I think I do.
Triceratops.
Well, Hogmaster might, because they probably hatched by now.
T-Rex.
No, those are butterfly eggs or moth eggs, one or the other.
Oh yeah,
large, or they could be walking stick eggs.
They will fuck you up. They got me last fall. I had never dealt with them, and the greenhouse doors open, and sure enough, they get in there, and it's all fine until you start to flower, and then they get inside.
Does anyone know? Does anyone know how? Yeah, they start shitting and they fuck everything.
Shit molds, and then your bud molds.
Yep. So does anyone know how the trichomes deflect caterpillars in both tobacco and cannabis? Does anyone understand the mechanism? Because I just learned this week, and I was super excited to share this with you guys.
Say it again. The mechanism of tobacco.
How does a trichome, when it's consumed by a caterpillar, what does that do that makes that bad for the caterpillar?
Well, they probably don't like the terpenes. Are probably those kind of aromatic. It's a lot worse when you're small. It has a lot to do with size. So those things are a lot more threatening. They're not threatening to us. We're gigantic. We have huge livers, right? Insects are very small. There's something about the dosage of like some kinds of terpenes and stuff could literally be a high dose. So maybe so what? They step on them. I'm just spitballing here. I don't know. Jesus, save me.
No, it's fine. I would like to hear you guys' thoughts before I tell you the answer. I think it's cool.
Save me. So he's walking. He's a caterpillar, and he's walking on the. I can imagine. I wouldn't want to step on those big globs. It's like, ew, sticky.
get stuck, but
Gooey, I'm stuck.
they had no problem on mine last year. I'm telling you, they were
So how it works is when the caterpillar consumes the trichome, it gives off pheromones that are very similar to that of the predatory insects that happen to love to feed on them. So if you have access to the open air, basically they stink, and they're basically a neon sign blinking along with like an odor, like the worst stink you've ever had, that helps the predatory insects find them and kill them. And that works the same way in both cannabis and tobacco, which I thought was really cool. It's the same mechanism, but that's what those proteins or those compounds were designed for, was actually to make the insect that consumes it smell more, to be easily or more easily found by predatory insects. So your plant's actively trying to help you. You just sometimes you have to let it get to a certain point. But with caterpillars, it's because of how much shit they put out, and it's super easy to tell if you have caterpillars. Look for the little black raspberries. They always leave little black raspberries, the poops.
Yep.
It's super easy to tell once you got caterpillar, even if you don't even see damage yet. You got heavy caterpillar.
It's cool how tobacco, it's so funny, tobacco being such a sort of an evil weed, but it's awesome if you've ever grown it. I mean, it's a beautiful plant.
Real tobacco, they call it quote unquote shaman's tobacco. It's actually hallucinogenic.
Yeah. Indian tobacco and
Indian tobacco, yeah.
What was his name? J.L. Hudson, the great seed catalog. The guy. It's up in Redwood City, and he was always all about that. He was always really into the rituals of tobacco. Talking about how you don't get. The Indians didn't get addicted because they were sticking more to the rituals of using the tobacco, and rather than just
the
abusing
nicotine levels weren't boosted back then either, so
we're not boosted.
Exactly. I have some old world tobacco from Jamaica. It's from Jamaica. That's from 1700s lineage and 1800s lineage, and it tastes nothing like what you have now. It's
there's a new tobacco that's. There's some new.
Yeah.
There's new stuff that's so high in genetics you can't even grow it in the United States. It's illegal. They grow it down in like Brazil or something. It's so high in nicotine that you can't. We don't even. Nobody handles it here.
You can
buy some it in other countries.
You can buy some at the Arabic store near you called Doha. You know Doha?
Yeah.
Love Doha. If you're really into smoking, there's a product called Doha, and Doha is the bottom quarter to half inch of the newest growth of the newest tobacco leaves on a plant, and then it's like blessed and done halal, and they keep it like super organic halal. What halal is like Muslim kosher.
Yeah, it's like kosher.
Yeah,
it's like
Muslim kosher.
Muslim version of kosher. Yeah.
So basically, it's like the best, most primo part of the tobacco plant and the newest growth, and it has different compounds in it, and it has a lot of nicotine, but it's like not the same kind of nicotine as like the older leaves. Kind of like you have THCA and THC. It's kind of like a different. I don't know if it's that kind of difference, but it definitely it feels different. I'll tell you that. It's much more pleasant. But you can't smoke much of it. It comes in a tiny little pipe, and you do like a chillum hit of it at a time.
Interesting. I was talking about J.L. Hudson. From him, I also learned about Don Juan tobacco, which grows here in California. It's the native plant. It's called what is tobacco? Is nicotia
the genus for rustica. It might be
anyway. It's Don. The common name is Don Juan tobacco. It's or tree tobacco, and it supposedly has another. It's another relative to nicotine, another alkaloid, which is related to nicotine called anabantine, 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 and it's in Don Juan tobacco or tree tobacco.
I'm trying to find the Latin. Nicotia rustica.
Is it rustica?
Rustica. It's also called Aztec tobacco or wild tobacco. Southern
This is
Mexico.
it's native here in California. I think it's called Don Juan tobacco.
That's why it's a Mexican tobacco. Don Juan
Yeah.
tobacco.
Anyway, and I think it has a slightly different chemical in it. It's a beautiful plant, and it's a tree. It makes a beautiful. It gets bigger. It's not really a tree. It's kind of a big bush, but it's interesting because when it's small, the leaves are really
Oh
huge.
wow, that's a huge family. I didn't realize there's like at least 3 dozen species.
Yeah. So what is Don Juan tobacco? I still didn't get it. It's Nicotiana, Glauca. Glauca.
Yeah, Nicotia glauco.
Glauca.
It's called tree tobacco or Brazilian tree tobacco.
Mr.
Mustard,
Green Jay.
or mustard tree tobacco.
Yeah. That is really common around here. We have it all over the place. Grows along. It's so tough it'll grow out through the cracks in the highway. It just and when it's small, it has huge leaves. And when it gets to be a bigger tree, the leaves get a lot smaller. And it has
I stand corrected. There are 67 known species of tobacco. As a jasmine tobacco.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Supposedly, this anabantine gets you high in the way that nicotine does, but is not as addicting, according to J.L. Hudson.
Well, what's the primary alkaloid? What's the primary alkaloid in shaman's tobacco? Anyone know off the top of their head?
Don't know.
Now we're getting into some really fun conversations.
Hit the limit of mine. I'm not a tobacco guy. I've grown it a couple times because concern over my friends.
I really, really, really like shaman's tobacco. I really like it.
I've never grown tobacco.
It's a beautiful plant to grow. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's really fun to grow. I don't know whether it's because it has a lot of ancestral history. I don't know what the hell it is. It's really neat. And I'm not a tobacco guy. I'm kind of pissed at tobacco, as a matter of fact. I'm not pissed at tobacco, but I may have a bone to pick with some people who in my life who have smoked some tobacco and this and that. But so there's a lot of relationships between tobacco and cannabis. There's a lot of things we can,
Well, that's a horrible labeling. Sacred tobacco is also called rape. R-A-P. Rape. That's it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it's
Harmala. It's Harmala. So it is Harmala. So Harmaline. So Harmala is the precursor to Harmaline, and Harmaline is Harmaline and tetrahydroharmaline are the two MAOIs in ayahuasca. So no wonder. That all makes sense now. It's an MAOI, so it's compounding something that's in the tobacco. That all makes sense now.
Very cool.
Oh, I don't get to use that knowledge often.
Hey, fellas.
So both
interesting
fact,
interesting thing. Die.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
So at some point, if you lose me, it's going to happen. So.
Well, thanks for coming back, man. It's nice to have you back after the move, I must say.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So
we were on the MAOI topic. So Harmala or Harmaline, those are like 50-50. We'll just increase the effects of whatever else you're taking with a tetra or with an MAOI for whatever reason you would take such things.
Right.
Those of you that know what they're for. So the other thing is that if you take something like tetrahydroharmaline, that actually is going to put the thumb on the scale and have you more of a positive experience than a 50-50, and actually be more of a 75 to 95% chance of having a positive experience for those of you that are out there that can absorb that. And we'll leave it at that.
Interesting. Very. Oh, I was going to say about the thing about the relationship between tobacco and cannabis and phosphorus. So feeding in phosphorus, and that there's they both have trichomes, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I've heard and I read about it concerning tobacco.
They both have trichomes. That's true.
Well, you both have trichomes, I know. I'm not talking, I didn't mean to qualify that. That is true, folks. But the next thing I'm going to say, which is about sources of rock phosphate, so superphosphate, right? Which is 0,45,0, or
No, hold on.
there's a weaker.
Rock phosphate is not superphosphate. Superphosphate, also known as triple phosphate,
Sorry. Thank you.
phosphate,
Thanks, Steve.
which is an entirely
Yeah.
different chemical compound, and that is not the same as rock phosphate. Rock phosphate is an entirely different chemical makeup. Yes, there could be calcium phosphate in it, absolutely, but there's going to be other minerals in it, and the ratios are going to be completely different, and how I would go about dosing that or unlocking that are night and day different.
The only thing I'm concerned about is the rumor of there being a degree of radioactivity in the one, which is not dangerous when you're growing vegetables and other things, but only dangerous with plants that concentrate that produce trichomes.
Which is hemp. Hemp is a biochemical.
And I believe it's about, and so I'm just saying this is a rumor. Now, I'm not saying this is fake news or non-news. You guys go out and do your own research, but I have heard that there is
glacial rock
a really
dust.
small amount of radioactivity, and that it can be concentrated in the trichomes, is what I've heard. And that people that are smoking tobacco are getting a high dose of this radioactivity because of that.
Right. So the danger would be more so in rock dust and glacial rock dust, as a lot of those are mining byproducts. And that, honestly, source of something like that. Not so much rock phosphate. Rock phosphate, while it will not have the same levels as, like, if you look at rock phosphate and you look at the heavy metal content, you'd be appalled by some of the rock phosphate heavy metal content we've tested at Aquaponic Source. Like offended.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is that I've heard that because that it's not even a danger necessarily for growing vegetables and other crops, but that it has been recognized as a danger with tobacco, right? And that was where it was identified as a danger with tobacco. And both of these plants, both tobacco, what I'm saying is that both tobacco and cannabis, produce trichomes. And the story that I heard was that, and again, so I mean, we have to do our own research, so, but I don't know if this is true, but I mean, I think it's always better to use organic sources anyway. And I mean, I generally don't use superphosphate, and I will, I just use bone meal. I mean, but that's just me, and I don't just avoid it because I'm not avoiding it. It's just I use the bone meal because that's what my grandmother taught me or whatever. But I don't think that the superphosphate is all that bad naturally. Maybe it's, I'm not saying don't do it, but maybe don't. Maybe check your research before you do.
So superphosphate isn't bad, but what you have to remember is superphosphate is, what is a 3-to-1 phosphorus to calcium ratio, which is very similar to what you want in your system. You want a 3-to-1 phosphorus to calcium ratio anyway. You want a 2-to-1 calcium to magnesium ratio. So, that's one of the other reasons why it's great. But you only want to dose like a blank slate. If I have 2/3 of the calcium and magnesium phosphorus I need, I don't want to use that. That's gonna fuck everything up and overshoot everything. So, it's about balancing based on current. That's why I tell people to test their systems every 2 to 4 weeks. Get it set. That's $40 to $50 if you're paying max price. Go if you're doing commercial. It's worth it to know what the fuck is going on with your nutrients. It makes absolute sense. It's a no-brainer. So.
Definitely, and besides, most things do better with less nutrients. I mean, you guys, we were talking the other week. It's funny that the trying to find the limit of how many fish can run in an aquaponic system, like, is almost overfeeding. But you guys are running down, going in the other direction of using much less fish and many more plants, so.
Well, Well, not so much. Like in cannabis, I'm using quite a bit of plants. Cannabis feeds super heavy, and I have to feed them a lot,
They're
even to
hungry.
maintain the phosphorus and nitrogen levels and trying to just keep the plants alive. So
Yeah. It does seem like a lot of plants do a lot better with less nutrients than more. I mean, I don't know. And I
So are
guess
you
that again,
consciously raising the metabolism of the fish and like feeding them more and more and more?
we do increase feed rate as they grow. But we've been experimenting more with microbes. Actually, Joe Pate, who has been on the show, he actually pioneered a study on lactobacillus ferments, basically using labs along with in the system, dosed into the fish tanks around the same time that they were feeding, so that the fish were ending up ingesting some of it,
So
and they were
this
getting a
is interesting.
10%
You
fish
might
increase in growth.
when I was talking with Dr. Faust the other day, he was talking about harvesting basically any biomass and inoculating it with oyster mushroom, mycelium, and then before it fruits, feeding that to the fish.
So we actually experimented with that exact. I know the exact thing he's thinking about right now. We actually did that as part of that oyster mushroom stuff that I
He did
posted
it. He
pictures
has a
on.
whole system to pelletize it and like
Oh damn! I should
back
talk
in
to
the
him.
80s. Every time you talk to him, he's like, back in the 80s, I invented this whole system. And I was like, what? Yeah.
No, dude. You know what's funny is so he used to meet at a place not very far from me, this bar, and I popped in there and bumped into someone that knew him the other day. It was blew me away that the place right down the street from me is where he used to meet. It was ludicrous.
That's
But
funny.
he was. That's why I'm stoked to have him come down, and we'll be able to go have a beer there. So. On that also note, we have the Dude Grows show, Bay Area Nug Throwdown over in on July 21st, the day after the class, with Josh and I and Elaine and Susan and everyone else, Dr. Robert Faust and Chris Trump and myself and Ken and am I forgetting
what's
anybody?
the date of that one again?
Um,
When's
So the Dude Grows Cup will be very affordable. It'll be cheap. Still working on finalizing pricing, but it won't be very expensive at all. Anyone that could afford to come out can afford it. It won't be a cost of a couple of beers. We'll leave it at that. And yeah, that'll be on the July 21st. Just right near where we're throwing the educational event. It's just at a different venue because of legal reasons. We have to be careful and make sure we're getting permitted areas where we throw cannabis events. So we got a sweet event, not venue, not too far away, and we also will have super low price uh, 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 sleeping available as well as a hostel nearby. So I'm working on securing some slots nearby so that if anyone's coming out, you might have to share a bunk bed with it. Maybe not share a bunk bed, but you'll be have the top or bottom bunk of a bunk bed, but at least you'll have a super affordable way for those. A lot of people don't have a ton of money, but they want to come out, so we'll give them a super cheap way to come out. San Francisco is one of the cheapest airports to fly into, and it really will be an affordable event for everybody. So even if you can't come out for the week, come out for Saturday.
And the powder is going to be flying around.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a shit ton of goodies for everybody. We'll also have a barbecue there. We'll have food, music. It's gonna be a good time. And you're gonna be able to, right across the street from the beach. So, if you get super stoned, you want to go dip your feet in the water, go for it. So,
sounds like a must to attend.
just watch
Do
out for
not
the
miss.
elephant seals because they're not super friendly.
Really,
But,
you can go on you guys got a beach where there's elephant seals? I
oh
thought
yeah,
that was only
there's great whites and everything out there. All probably 3 to 4 different species of seals, and it's quite the happening area.
we go up there. We camp up there. I've been camping up there a lot. Yeah.
Are you in LA area?
Me?
Yeah.
Or him?
I'm in LA. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, like to me, Mr. Green Tea?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in LA, yeah. below LA. I was in San Clemente, which is like right above, halfway between San Diego and right above Camp Pendleton. But now I'm up in the process of moving up to San Pedro, which is really cool. Very cool neighborhood.
Cool.
Cool. What so I guess I'll go over real quick what I've been up to. So I've been working on a bunch of paperwork for the company as always, which is always not fun. And then we got the giant pumpkins going at Ouroboros Farms, which is super fucking awesome. We have giant watermelons growing there, which would be super fucking awesome. We're gonna grow one with just one giant one, and we'll grow one or just see how many pumpkins or watermelons we can grow. So that'll be kind of cool. And then we have a couple of other cool different types of vegetables growing. We're going to be doing a decoupled versus dual root zone planting side by side soon, and decide once and for all who's better, and do a little bit of fun stuff with that. I posted the first video on that, and it's nice to see a bunch of views and responses. I know with the algorithms and shit with YouTube, it's kind of annoying. You almost have to post something clickbaity or controversial, but if you do, you'll get views. So who cares? Yeah. So it's always fun poking the hornet's nest. And what else is going on? Yeah, just doing a lot of planting, doing a lot of organizing, trying to get a manufacturing plant off the ground here in the Bay Area. We're not too far away. I think the next sometime between August or September, we'll actually be able to put foot in building and actually start producing shit. So we'll see if that doesn't change. I thought I was going to be in a lab by October of last year. So the license situation is always ever changing, as we all know. That's probably the bane of my life right now. But other than that, I'm trying to think what else is going on. It's got some cannabis stuff going on. I got some girls about ready to switch around my setups and get into regular production. So I'll have some regular videos of some plants and pictures of some plants here soon. And kind of almost, I got stuff about halfway built out. Just trying to finish up everything. It's been a lot of travel the last week or two, so it's been a little bit wonky. So kind of nice to be back into where I'm at now and back to normal. So if anyone has any other what have you been up to, Dutch?
Show you. Actually, I'm impressed with myself here. I've been cloning outside, which I've never done before. But my shipping containers aren't insulated or climate controlled, so it gets too hot. And so I was like fighting that, and then I just kind of like realized, hey, if I put up a dumb tarp where I live, it's pretty much going to be 68 to 72 all the time, except for at night, and I got heat mats. So, yeah, I got about 95% on these rapid rooter style, so I was pretty happy with that. Outside, I'd have to turn these lights off for a couple hours in the afternoon. Is all I really had to do to maintain it. And then I set up these water cloners about 5 days ago, so they're doing good. No lights on them. I'm just letting the blue light from the tarp kind of do the thing.
Are those easy clones or?
Yeah, there's one turbo cloner in there, but I like the easy clone better.
Yeah.
And I actually have, look at this, I have a whole, I think this is the newest one. This is the turbo, and this one was a little bit older. And then, no, this one is a little bit older, and this one is the oldest. And the oldest is my favorite. They've done nothing good, in my opinion, except for, use cheaper materials and made more money in their pockets. This thing is heavy duty. There's a lot of reasons. It's heavy duty. It has a longer spray manifold, so all the plugs get wet. Look at this right here. These all die on the corners. So
Indica asked if there is a good line of newts I could push him to. Are you talking for soil or for aquaponics? If aquaponics, there's not really a good line, but Mad Farmer isn't too bad for soil if you want something that's like great quality and I don't, you guys probably have other suggestions. Boogie Brew is good for teas.
what was the question?
It says, "Hey, so I have a question. My dad is stuck on the bottle, not willing to get away from Fox Farm newts. My question is, do you guys have a good line of newts I could talk him into?"
Good line of newts. Yeah, I don't know. I get for me, if I would say ditch all the newts and reduce all the impact and just grow to like some poop, some guano or some chicken poop or something
Yeah,
like that.
but he's a bottle baby. You need something he can actually understand. You can't.
Dude, these little seabird pellets I get, I still get
DynaGrow.
them. I'm in a pinch right now, but I've grown some of the best pot. I just like a
DynaGrow.
sea
I
guano
love
pellet.
the problem. Let me tell you, there's a problem with seabird guano.
Oh, I know the problem, dude.
The
But
sodium.
here's
The sodium issue.
Here's the thing that I'm defending is I haven't got nutrients to my whole 5,000 square feet of canopy for $80.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. If it's a once every 3 years kind of application, it's fine. It's the problem is you cannot use that every single run, and you will destroy your soil because the sodium level is way too high. The problem is seabirds can only excrete sodium via two ways: their asshole and their nose. That's it. So if they can't poop
All
it out,
birds.
it comes out the nose. It's all birds, reptiles as well. To be honest with you, it's the same mechanism. That they're
Only one
the
hole.
same. Yeah, they got a cloaca, or they got a nose. They don't actually have an asshole. They have a cloaca. So basically, the seabird guano is extremely high in sodium, and that's why it's great. It's extremely bioavailable. It's organic. It's wonderful. You can't use it every single run because of the sodium issue. You will accumulate sodium and then just kill your plants outright. I've seen it.
I believe that, especially if you're using like crab meal and oyster shell.
Well, crab meal's nowhere near as sodium. Oyster shell, again, nowhere near the sodium as bird guano.
It doesn't store. It doesn't store in the shell.
That's calcium carbonate. That both of those are much lower sodium. Much lower sodium.
Because the bird has to get rid of the sodium.
Yeah, the bird's excreting the sodium and concentrating it in its waste. Yeah.
So these are those seeds, that I'm talking about.
Awesome.
Dude, those look great. They were all little a week or two ago. Those are looking.
Yeah, I'll show you guys. Everything's looking great. I'm back to health.
Ripping.
But I've been pulling out some males. These are all. This is all mix in here. And
now, let me ask you this:
Have they been the
tallest plants? Are you pulling them on height, or are you pulling them on if they got nanners?
Balls, yeah. I had a couple of. I'm coming out here every couple of days and looking, and I had probably 15 plants that I pulled that had balls on them. I mean, none of them had popped. I'm hoping if I just kind of stay on it every couple of days, and if it rains or something,
They should be your taller ones and the ones that have more nodes stretching.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't.
Especially if those are all the same.
Some of that, like here, this guy. This is a taller one.
Yeah, it should be obvious with the same strain. If it's taller and more stretched,
this guy's probably a male.
I'd put $5 on that being a male.
That.
Did you start them inside? Started them in under lights?
Well, yeah, for a couple days. I brought them out as soon as I could. Because I don't.
They've been outdoors most of their lives?
Yeah, and I've had them out early.
You got a really long day up. You're in Washington.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And why the fuck are you seeing flowers? Why the fuck are we seeing flowers?
Oh,
pardon my language. Is that going to get us kicked off YouTube? Oh, Jesus.
No, it's because I had them under lights. And I had them.
That's what I asked.
Yeah. Sorry, outside. Little stone. Taking me a second to think through. That's exactly what's going on.
Me too. Hey, join the club.
Yeah, no, I had them outside under supplemental lights. Not like grow lights, but just keep them in photo period. And I had it flip on at 2 a.m.
For
2 hours, and then they turned that off, and so that's why they did that. And I think that I'll probably have more males in here that just weren't as easily to trigger. So that was a question I have for you. Given that scenario, this scenario is that I had them in probably 18-hour light cycle with it off some off periods, and then they went to maybe a 16-hour light cycle, and these 15 males popped off enough that they were going to kick pollen if I left them out. How do I think about those males? I mean, are they gonna? Can I kind of what can I deduce from that information?
What do you mean? That they
Well, I have certain males that were ready to pop off earlier than other ones, and more sensitive, I guess, to the light.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because there's a great deal of variation in everyone's response to day length changes. And especially in all drug cannabis, because we don't really select for that much. So it's kind of like your Greek people with weak hearts that live on Crete, and the genetics develop for a weak heart, but since they're always running up and down the hill all the time, you don't notice it. So I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that the variation in response to day length can be tremendous, and we're not doing anything about it. We're not selecting for it because we're generally switching from whatever our indoors when we're growing and stuff, which is where all the drug cannabis has been bred and grown and everything for the last 30 years.
Right.
We're generally going from whatever our veg time is to whatever our flowering time is, which is probably 12/12. So we're missing. We're not doing any kind of selection for this, gradual. Because what happens in real life is the day length changes. Now, for many years, I've believed that plants seem to flower. People think that plants flower at a certain cutoff of the day length. When the timing gets below this point, then that'll trigger flowering. But I don't necessarily believe that. I think that plants kind of watch the curve, you know what I mean? And some you could induce flowering just by reducing time, and you could still have a pretty long day, but the plant is watching this reduction in time. And then there's going to be all variations in there, and we've not, as I say, we haven't selected for that over all these years. We don't do anything, so all those variations are just getting carried along. So when you do something like that, and you have some plants going to pop up and show their maleness, and other ones are not. Is that what you're saying? It's like, why did some do it?
Yeah, I get it. So if they did that, they were a little more sensitive than others. I guess my thought was that then they would, if I use that pollen on a female or their sisters, might be flower earlier, and then I could use them to bring something forward that would start flowering and triggering earlier in the season and have an earlier finish.
Maybe. But
but you also increase the chance of harming as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't read into it too much for exactly what I was saying before, is because we haven't selected for any of that shit over the last 40 years. You know what I mean? Kind of what you're looking at now, and everybody, we're going to have to start thinking about this a lot in the future.
No, hold on. I want to disagree with that. So in Jamaica, they specifically breed for speed of production.
Oh, yeah. But I'm not. That's not exactly what I mean. And obviously Jamaica's completely different than Washington. The day length, and what triggers flowering. You know what I'm saying?
Right. We've just been going off an indoor model where it's on and off.
Yes, we've been going for so many years. We've bred all these drug cannabis exactly on an indoor model, which is on and off. And now we're starting to try and move everything outdoors. And it's going to happen over these next couple of years. It's going to be really interesting. I'm super interested in this subject. What you're talking about, what we're talking about right now, Dutch. This is the shit. because this is I really think that, like I said before, we're only scratching the surface with genetics and cannabis. We're just beginning to mess around. In fact, no one's even really interested. I'm really surprised that only a few people are really taking a really strong interest in it yet, because I think it's,
Well, there's a lot of people interested. The problem is that the legality of actually researching any of this shit has been
right,
pretty much
right
non-existent.
again, Steve.
This is one of the bigger ones there, and it's definitely a female. She's beautiful. That's super sour orange.
She got some pussy hairs on there.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so much, like I said, it's just so much variation that we have not bred for. That so now when we're moving outdoors, and see, okay, so what I said before, I want to reiterate a thing I said before, which is that there's a lot of idea or sort of belief in the culture and the community of growers and everybody that flowering is triggered at a certain day length. In other words, so that as the hours dip under a certain point,
Oh,
that will
it's
trigger
not.
flowering.
It's not. It's
Really?
the length of nighttime.
Yeah, well, but also the plants watch the change and the rate of change. They literally watch the rate of change. So if they're planted in, take a clone, for example, it's, always going to generally, be the same, and planted in a northern area where it's looking at more swifter increase in the day length, in the spring. You know what I'm saying? Quicker every day is noticeably longer. Boom, 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 boom. And then what will it do in the south, where every day is more gradual change, only a slight change. So how will the plant react then? And will it always begin flowering when that day length reaches that same cutoff point? I don't really agree. I don't think so. I think that if it's in a northern area where it's looking at swifter changes daily, then it will make a plan for that. That it's very smart. That it understands, and it goes, okay, I've got to finish sooner. You know what I'm saying? That it kind of knows that. It has a sense for that, and yeah, the boys do too. So yeah, the plot thickens, right? It's really cool.
Yeah.
I really think we've only begun to scratch the surface. I'll tell you one thing is that I think that the southern regions of really high quality drug cannabis are going to be extended further south, because I kind of think that we have. Now I don't want to start a battle with you up there, Dutch. But I think that we have better soil down here than you do up there, because your soil up there is very rich and very nutritious. And our soil is easier to control the nutrition in down here. So it's kind of like Cuban, like in the sense that really fine tobacco is grown in Cuba, where the soil is kind of shitty. You know what I mean? because the further south you go, well, it's not really shitty, I shouldn't say that, but the further south you go, the less organic matter there is in your soil, right? And it's a tricky thing. I'm not saying the soil's less nutritious. I'm just saying there's less organic matter in the soil, and the reason is because all the soil organisms are working on year round and going on it. And when you go up further north, where you guys are up in Washington, you only have soil organisms working on, part time. So the rest of the time, all the organic matter gets to sit around and build up and get nice and heavy, and you get very nutritious soil. See, so I'm saying that maybe that the great areas of high quality, drug cannabis are southern, kind of like they might be with tobacco. Because we can control our nutrients better, we can withhold nitrogen at the end, which is very critical. It's real, it's hard to grow real high quality cannabis without withholding nitrogen at the end. And well, that's not really true. I shouldn't say that across the board. It's hard to grow high quality cannabis that has a lot of indica genetics in it if you can't withhold nitrogen at the end. But if you get the right genetics, you don't necessarily have to withhold all your nitrogen at the end. Is my theory. I'm going off. I'm telling you guys all kinds of
No, it's
crazy
cool.
shit now.
I mean, I don't disagree, and you know,
I mean, I'm
it's gonna
you know,
be.
these are my theories. theories.
No, yeah, no, but it's I don't grow, you know, I don't grow any stuff directly in the ground. You know, if I was just showing videos, I'll look at
Yes,
it.
I saw.
Everything's in a raised bed.
Raised bed.
These are two hugel beds, and they're the closest to native soil, but they're still raised hugel beds with my nutrients in them. So
Yeah.
really, it's climate, you know, and so for me, I'm a local sustainable farmer, so I want to grow the food where I live and where the people live, and we should grow cannabis the same. We're the people that are going to consume it, and I don't want to ship my cannabis to California and vice versa. You know,
It's not the way of the future anyway.
right. So my job is to find the stuff that's going to grow well here and produce well here at my farm. Not even just every you know my area, but my farm.
Totally.
And, you know, the one argument we do have is this right here, the fungal. You know, we the fungal dominance. You know, look at
Oh
that.
yeah,
All
we don't
the
get
way
that.
around.
We don't get no fungus down here. You guys are
Boom,
killing
all
us
the way
for
around.
fun.
So
Yep.
you know, we got that going. But it's also pretty wet. Did you guys see this? I'm pretty stoked on the progress here. I got a friend came out, or a new friend, and he actually heard me on the show, and he came out, and he's now working here with me, and he's built this thing with his own two hands, and he's sore from it. But it's a nice 8 wide by 100-foot long hugel bed, and it's you know, all the trees that we you know, fallen trees, branches and stuff we harvested off the property just here and there.
Yeah.
The neighbor's field, and there was some rotten straw.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
That
so we
looks
covered
delicious.
it with the fan leaves from that crop right there is week 3, and so we're fan leafing that and putting the fan leaves on here. And then the next step we'll be digging soil from right here and over here and topping it with that. And then we'll fill the beds back in with chip. So this will be a fairly, you know, similar native soil, and I'll add some nutrients, you know, some minerals and poop. You know, ideally I'd be doing this with some sheep off my farm, you know, but I can't really have chickens in the cannabis garden. They're too much to keep out of the little stuff in workflow. So I have ducks, you know, but
little chickens. You get, you know, it's with chickens. It's all.
Ducks will eat anything that. Ducks will eat anything they can reach. Once they're tall, or you got them caged off, they're fine.
Oh well, ducks don't.
Small chickens.
Vegetables.
Sorry.
What were you saying?
I was just gonna say little chicken.
I was gonna say I don't know about you, but my ducks eat all my veggies.
No, they're all about the slug. Where are they? But they're getting down, and hopefully they'll have some babies, and I'll have a whole little flock here. I only have 2.
Sorry, Mr. Green Jeans, go for it. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say little, you know, chickens come in all different sizes, and small chickens are much less invasive than big chickens, and then they also come in a lot of different activity levels. You got your mellow chickens, and you got your crazy chickens, you know. So
right.
like, so you got, you know, like the what are they called, not the Wyandottes, but the Brahmas, the ones with the chickens with the feathers on their legs.
Yeah.
You know, they get the feathers all the way down, and
Brahmas.
so you get the bantam.
Brahmas. I have Brahmas.
Brahmas, yeah.
Yeah,
Is
I
it?
have
Yeah.
Brahmas. I have 10 of them.
And they're mellow. You can walk up to them and pick them up, right? They're
like Muppets.
They're chill. They're like Muppets, right? So you can get those ones in like bantam size, you know, and those are so chill you can't believe it. They can't fly. They walk around like that. They lay great eggs, and they don't even dig. You know, they dig a little bit, and they're super friendly. The kids can play with them.
Well, like this.
So
So I had 2 chickens in this whole. It's an acre fence here. 2 chickens and 3 ducks. And the two
yeah,
chickens tore apart these beds. They were totally destroyed over the winter, and I had to rebuild them. And it was just like, fuck you guys. You know, like I know they're depositing shit, which is good, but like, fuck them, dude. It was, you know.
you
So
had the wrong chickens. You had some
maybe,
big old
well, and
burly.
you know, when I'm putting little babies in too, like that's why I was back over here. You know, it's like, am I going to put up a fence for 2 weeks around every, you know, time I plant babies? So
Yeah.
I like the
Well,
I'd like to use the chickens
this
off this fenced area and bring their poop into it after it's composted. That's
yeah,
where I was going with it, but
yeah.
not that
I
I don't
wonder
like
about stuff like
I'm done with chickens in my
I wonder
garden.
about quails and things. You
There
know,
you go.
quail is that? Have you ever tried? I never tried that.
I haven't
Yeah.
either.
Wonder about. Yeah. Or there's other intermediate ones too. There's ones that are kind of like bigger than quail.
Guinea fowl are pretty good.
Guinea
Yeah,
fowl. There you
I'm scared. I like guinea fowl, but I'm scared that they're going to go on top of my plastic thing and pop it. Because they love to fly up. And I was on a farm before here, and they would get up on the tin roof all the time, and you just hear them up there. And my buddy's like, "Wait till you get a greenhouse, dude. That's going to be a problem." I was like, yeah, good point. So that's why I
That's awesome.
this farm. But I want to
The
get
nice thing is that they're really good for killing snakes and ticks.
yeah. I want to get those the ducks. They're the ugly looking ones. They're kind of not even. What are they called? Wow, what's the
I have
name?
3 of the pom-pom headed ones, the ones that look like they have an afro.
Oh, cool. The ones with the like bubblegum face. You know, it looks like they have bubblegum all over their face.
I don't know.
Anyways, they're supposed to be really chill, and they're supposed to be like ferocious on the slugs and the bugs, and you kind of don't have to feed them, and they're real chill about it in terms of like disturbing the soil.
So Dutch? What's your plan with the with this bed here that we're looking at? What are you gonna do with the males? That you pulled them out already? Gonna leave some? What?
I repotted them, and I stripped off all their balls and threw them in 24 hours of light in a shipping container. So my plan is just to keep them.
They will, just so you're aware, they will produce pollen in 24 hours of light. Males will do that.
So some can is what I've been told, but like really strong ones won't. I mean, if you keep them proper.
They should just go back to vegging, just like the girls, in my experience.
Yeah.
They'll,
right now, I have some CBD ones that were in 24 hours of light, and we're throwing off flowers 24 hours of light. I put them out under 12-12, and they're not producing flowers anymore. Like, figure that the fuck out.
I tell you, man, there's a lot we don't know about cannabis and their response to date photoperiodicity. we don't have it all sussed out yet, believe me.
Well, so do you understand how that mechanism works? Because a lot of people don't understand how that works.
What do you mean? How it works? In what way? What do you mean?
So the hormone that produces flowers in cannabis, and this does the same for spinach, for
onions.
What's the arugula? There's other plants that do this as well. Onions, other things that they have to have a minimum photo period. Not all of them, but certain ones. But basically the minimum photo period. So it's the amount of nighttime and the accumulation of this particular hormone until it reaches a critical level. So there's a method called gas lamping, where you it's not an SJW term. It's when you turn the lights on for an hour every 4 hours, and you can actually or shut the plants off for 4 hours, turn them on for 4 hours, shut them off for 4 hours, turn them on for 4 hours, and keep them on a 12-12 and keep them in veg. So if I was really, really off-gridding it in, say, northern Alaska or something through the middle of winter, and I really need to conserve on my battery bank and really conserve on my fuel, I can still maintain a vegetative state on my moms and my clones and my my veg plants. And as far as the plant's concerned, it's in 12, it's in 18 hours of light or whatever, even though it's still under 12-12, because the only thing that induces the flowering state of cannabis is that prolonged buildup of that. That's the same reason. Let me explain to you exactly how that works. So have you guys ever super cropped a plant, and you understand how when you super crop or you bend the stalk on the top of a plant, it suddenly produces more branching? Do you understand what's going on? Is that when you collapse that structure, you're basically increasing the production of that flowering hormone, the same one that because that plant, it can't then evacuate itself back through those tubes and be distributed back out to the rest of the plant in the root system or wherever else it goes. I think it's the root system. I'm a little bit fuzzy. I've had a little bit to smoke today. I believe it's the root system that it ends up going to. And what that'll end up doing is that you're actually causing that same kind of short-term buildup of that flowering hormone, the same way as if it's in a prolonged night state, because it cannot relieve itself of the buildup of that hormone because you've collapsed the veins on it by squeezing it and bending it and preventing the escape of that hormone. That's the reason why that particular mechanism of supercropping works. It's the same hormone response that you're trying to induce.
Cool.
Sorry to get off into like a tangent, but it was just, I know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize you're actually just trying to reduce these hormone responses out of them, not trying to do anything else.
There's so much that, I mean, we really, like I was saying earlier, about genetics. I mean, we're just scratching the surface, and so many other things. And this is one of the areas, the photoperiodicity, that makes so much sense about the nighttime. That what you really need is the extended period of night. And if you keep on breaking that up.
Yep. That's for almost all plants work that way. So anything that's photoperiod sensitive, you can break, and it can save you a lot of money. If I'm doing a commercial farm and I have arugula and I want to make sure that shit's not flowering, all I gotta do is kick my lights on for 30 to 45 minutes in the middle of the night, and then they're fine.
Middle of the night.
Exactly.
Right. The stop. Yeah.
And that's same thing with certain spinaches are very photoperiod sensitive. That's why a lot of aquaponics people, it's the bane of their existence. Like, oh, why can't I grow this? I could make so much money on it. And I can grow it really fast and quickly. Yeah, you can, but you got to break that night cycle. You got to give them a little burst of light temporarily. Not to be long. It doesn't have to be powerful. You just got to wake those photocells up and get that to break up that hormone buildup. And that's all you have to do. And it's one of those mystery things that there's so many of these things that are mystery things in aquaponics, and it's actually not a mystery thing at all. You guys there's no one in aquaponics that sat down and explained it to everyone. Same thing with the silica.
Right.
No one sat down and explained that to everyone. And it's a lot of this stuff where it's very frustrating. So I try to get this book out this year, both a cannabis one and then a general aquaponics one, hopefully right behind it, just to try and get rid of all this mystery crap. Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Roger.
Hey, man. How'd the show go?
We're still going.
Oh, hey, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a real rough day. I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation. I had a
that's
real
all
rough
good.
day.
We've all had a rough week. We were all talking about that before.
I ended up passed out, and I forgot. I knew about the show, and I apologize to all our fans out there. I just had I'm not going to go into it, but I just had a real rough day, and then I passed out. I don't know.
No worries.
I just woke up.
So what have you been up to with your grow? Why don't you tell us about that?
Who, me?
Yeah. What have you been growing?
Oh, I just got my perpetual grow going, and I got, I'm in the beginning of the flowering stage pretty much on most of it, and I've got a bunch of new seedlings. Well, actually they've been topped and they're about 3 or 4 weeks old. I'm ready to throw them in the flower room. A lot smaller than I normally would, but it was a matter that it's all new strains for me. And I got the clones. I topped them, and I'm going to probably top them one more time. So I've decided I'm going to do instead of trying to grow giants, I'm just going to keep feeding smaller plants in there and flowering them out. I'll probably still put them in a 5-gallon cloth pot, maybe 3 even. But last time I had a real nice plant with a 3-gallon, but in the end, it just didn't yield very much. When you go through all that and you go, wow, it only fills up half of a mason jar. You go, well, maybe I need a bigger pot next time. But I think the 5 gallons work great with the cloth pots, and And I saw, I think I'm doing that. I'm going from like a half gallon or about a half gallon pot. I'm going from when I start them, then I put them in the half gallon. They're working really well. It works great in the room, because you can fit plenty of them. It's kind of like Mr. Green Jeans with his tall cups. You can fit plenty of them in a space and kind of let them sit there, and they can be root bound a little bit as long as you keep them fed a little bit. Not too much now for all you noobs out there. You don't want to feed your young plants too much and get them too woody, because then you can't clone them. Well, you can, but it takes forever.
It takes longer.
Yeah, I mean, you can clone anything, but I mean, it just takes forever to be woody.
Well,
so I try
no,
to keep them supple at the top, so they bend real easy and they clone a lot easier.
Well, so you know what's funny is you ever notice how much silica and calcium plays a role? If your calcium's too low, how rubbery they get? You ever had some plants that are, I mean, you can bend them over 180 degrees and they don't even break because they have no calcium, not enough calcium. It's always funny. Too much nitrogen, not enough calcium.
That's a good hint for everybody. CalMag or something. That's a good hint right there.
Yeah. You gotta be careful though. Like, don't use CalMag in aquaponics. Use calcium sulfate and magnesium sulfate. Because you use CalMag, you're gonna spike your nitrogen and kill your fish.
Yeah. Don't use that in aquaponics, but in our soilless methods and stuff, it's really great. Actually, use what Steve uses in your soilless and do just as well. Probably, and save you some money in the long run. Because if you buy a bag of powdered, minerals or whatever, it's going to be a lot cheaper in the long run than anything you buy with water in it. Sure.
The book I'm working on, I actually have everything typed up. I was going to post it all. Well, I'm going to do a bunch of nutrient series on YouTube, but I'm going to have accurate dosing for how much you should do for recommended dosage each time for anything you could ever come across at a grocery store as far as raw minerals. In the book that I'm working on, I have everything all typed up. I had to submit it for something earlier in the early in the month. So, so that's all. So that's all worked out. So that'll be in the book coming out this year as well. I actually got pretty far along with that. I'm trying to get that out. Dragged my feet with that for a little while, and now I got a little hoop house I'm building. So we'll have some how-tos and a build-out pictorial for that to help people build, from scratch. If you're trying to build a hoop house, and you're trying to grow your 6, 8, or 100 plants or whatever. How to build that from scratch. I got a little area designated in a garden. Okay, what do we do after that? Which is kind of what people want in an aquaponics book. So we're going to have that along with a bunch of different pictures and stuff from different flowering rooms and things like that. Trying to get permission to use more of the pictures that I have. I'm running into a lot of resistance. A lot of people don't want to share their private grow pics that I have from the companies I worked with. So, but I do have a lot of pics for myself that I've grown and stuff that I have permission with that's going to come out. I've been starting to trickle out some of those pictures on Instagram. So if you are following me on Instagram, I've been trickling. I actually had a huge response when I was showing some more of the pictures from the mushroom stuff that I worked on. Actually worked on a big oyster mushroom project for CO2 production, and people have been really ranting and raving about that on Instagram. So,
wow,
oyster mushrooms.
Yep, we're growing oyster mushrooms and generating CO2 off of the incubation period and the fruiting chambers, and producing enough to keep the plants at maximum production. So it's a much more sustainable way, smaller carbon footprint, and I can take something that was an expense, which was CO2, buying tanks or burning fuel for the CO2 burners, and actually turn a profit on it. Yes, I have to hire an employee or two, but that employee or two is going to more than pay for themselves and generate a profit on top of paying for themselves. So now I have an expense that's turning a profit. And not only that, when you're trying to go for a permit with a local industry or a local business or city council, and you want to tell them how you want to get set up, you tell them that, man, you're going to get a yes every time, like just about anyways. If they're friendly to cannabis, they're going to pick you over the guy that's doing hydro or burning CO2 or buying tanks or burning natural gas to generate. You know what I mean? You're that guy doing it right. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, that was a good tip, Steve. Thank you.
Yep. So if you're interested in that kind of perfecting that, let me know. I can put you in touch with the gentleman that I worked with and helped get that all figured out with. He actually, I can't take the credit for that. He's the one that did all the math on that, and it was at his place that we did it. So don't let me take credit for that. But I definitely did a bunch of work with him on that project. So
cool. That was neat.
Yep. He's I think his email is turtleislandfarms@gmail.com. He was, if he hasn't been on
Turtle
the
Island Farms. That's in North Carolina.
no, this guy's in Colorado. I
Oh.
want to get him on the show, and I actually want to get him to come speak at one of the Regenerative conferences as well. He's one of the more unique people I've met as far as the industry goes, and I think that hybridizing his CO2 model could really be a game changer for our industry, be it soil growers that are trying to be sustainable or aquaponic growers. It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, that would
So
work for either one if you can set up that little, if you can do that little setup like that.
yep. So I'm gonna try and get rid of this white noise. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Anyways, anything else going on, Roger?
Not a whole lot unless you want to hear a bunch of negative crap going on in my life, and I don't usually try to spew that out on live.
No, it's all good. What else? Anybody else got anything before we wrap things up? I have one other plug out. So, June 23rd and 24th, we are doing I'm teaching an aquaponic cannabis class at Ouroboros Farms. On June 23rd, we are also hosting a CBD infused farm to table dinner at Ouroboros Farms. So, if you're interested in that, please check out the information on the website over at ouroborosfarms.com. You can sign up for the classes as well as the dinner there. And then we also have any other classes with medicinal herbs and cannabis classes for the rest of the year posted up there, along with some of the other cool classes. We have some, I'm teaching a tropical fish class, and there's a couple of other one-off classes. We have some guest speakers coming in. We have a beekeeper guy coming in to speak on bees, and a whole bunch of great stuff. We're trying to get in a lot more local speakers and trying to get in more stuff than just solely aquaponics for those interested at the farm. And then we also have the Science of Regenerative Aquaponic Cannabis Conference. I'm sorry, Science of Regenerative Aquaponic Cultivation Conference at Ouroboros
July
Farms.
16th through 20th.
Yep, July 16th through 20th, and the link is in the description as well. Again, with Elaine Ingham, Susan Wainwright, Dr. Robert Faust, Chris
Efren?
Trump, and myself, Ken Armstrong, and we will have one other aquaponic guest. I still waiting on a last minute confirmation on someone.
Didn't you say Dr. Efren was going to be on that too?
Dr. Efron will not actually be at that particular.
Oh, okay.
event,
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately. No, we were just talking about him earlier. Yeah, he's a great guy. Just he wasn't available that week, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a lot.
I tried though. He was on the list.
Oh, I do have something to share. I guess I can make it easy.
Oh yeah, the forum.
Good friend of our show, Aquaponic Dummy, is in dire straits right now. I can't go into too much detail because he's kind of a private guy, and I haven't got permission to share it with the world. But we are going to be doing a fundraiser and selling the bulk of his majority of the stock he's got left in his store at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. We're going to do a special fire sale for him to sell the product he's got left in his store. And we're going to be doing a fundraiser to raise some money because he's got himself in a situation that he can't control, and it's an unusual thing that the forum will allow people to, for us to raise money and stuff. But he's been a real good a member of the forum and a staff, and helped a lot of people out and given away a lot of things. In fact, he got an embarrassing thing. I don't know if the fellas listen, but a while back he joined the show and he gave away a grow tent. Well, he was not at his store, and somebody went by that thought he should be, and they broke in there, and then they let some people go in there and they stole the grow tent and they stole some other things, and he lost a lot. He lost his rosin ears and a whole bunch of stuff. They let these people go in there and steal. So actually the city broke the door down and then allowed somebody to go in there to clean it up or something like that, and they cleaned up all right. So anyway, enough said about that. I'm sure he'd probably kick me if I said it anyway, but we are going to be doing a fundraiser at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. Just look for dummy, aquaponic dummy or whatever, a thing for him, and there'll be products. There'll be a link to a place where you can go look at what products are available in stock, and we'll do the best we can. We're pretty much going to sell them at cost, which is about what you pay for them at Amazon. So can't go much cheaper than that. We need to at least get his cost back. It's within $1, believe it or not. We actually were going to try to do a store and compete, but if you go do that, you find out even when you buy it wholesale from a major distributor, you can only make $1 more, maybe $1 more than what they sell it on Amazon already. So that's real bizarre to me. But so anyway, that's what the prices will be. So we'll be matching the eBay, Amazon type price range, and there's a lot of Fox Farm and stuff like that people like. So that's it. That's my public announcement for tonight.
Well, we'll do our best to try and support. Let me know. I'll repost whatever we need to repost.
Yeah, I'll get with you guys later. I didn't have a chance to talk to you about it, and then I decided to, be out of it tonight.
Does anyone else have anything else before we wrap the show up to plug?
I'm good.
I was just
Sorry.
going to shout out to Chris Trump's course that he's doing the week before the Science of Aquaponic Regenerative Cultivation Conference.
Oh yeah.
It's in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, and it's K&F course that he's teaching, and it's really affordable. And if you are around and can do it, you should. I would do it if I could.
How much?
Do you have a price on that?
I don't remember, but it's under $500 for sure. I think it's like $350, $400 for 5
I'm trying to go to that.
and
That's
it's
not
like
bad.
it's going to be limited to I think like 35, 50 people, something like that. And there's going to be hands-on. Like it's I think he said you'd walk away a certified level 1 and maybe 2. I don't understand exactly how all the KNF thing, but there's different like levels that you can get certified and trained.
I remember he said you'd be certified to teach like weekend courses on your own.
Yeah.
So you better publicize and then teach your own KNF course.
There's a bit of controversy with that right now. With the
Yeah.
anyone that's been following the Korean natural farming scene, I won't even begin to attempt to touch that whole thing. But there was someone that pretending to be someone else that was causing a bunch of stir, and it wasn't who they were claiming to be, and it caused a bunch of drama regarding the certified Korean natural farming scene. Again, I don't know the details. I'll be honest with you. I've been reading everything on their thing, and I still don't know what the fuck happened or what the hell's going on. But everything is now seems like it's resolved itself, and Master Cho stepped in and was like, "Oh, this is correct. This is wrong," or whatever. And he's the master on all this, so there's no real arguing with him. So,
but that's good that his word is in there with the positive note. So.
Right. And again, I don't know my foot from my own asshole on that whole situation, so I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. But I just know that there was something that happened there, and that the certification stuff is kind of a weird thing right now, I guess.
Okay, so I'm trying to go to that. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. And isn't it? How many days is that going to be, Chris?
I think it's 5, right?
Yeah, I think it's 5 days.
5 days. So you're going to have hotel and motel accommodations and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but it's Idaho, so I mean
it's Boise, Idaho. Yeah, which is the hip town for Boise. But
hey, I'm telling you, hotels aren't cheap anywhere, man.
It's the Boulder of Idaho. It's only $45. No, I'm just kidding.
But it might be the weed of California, like.
Well, it is farmland. They know what they're doing. They're farming up there, and that might be part of why I don't know why he's doing it in Idaho. Is that where he's from originally?
No, he's from Hawaii.
That's what I thought. I was wondering why is he doing it in
He's got a farmer or something out there he works with. So.
Yeah. Well, then that tells you Korean farm method would definitely work in an area with snow and stuff, which is something people were asking.
One of the cool things that we spoke of the other day, and that I really just admire about Chris is he does like a lot of outreach, if you will, and traveling to third world countries to get information out, because it's to help people grow food for cheap, and so maybe that's part of it, just to be more accessible. I don't know, but I do know he does a lot of that, and I super look up to him for it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to get to that show. I don't want to do much, but that's one I want to try to. I want to try to get the money up and go to. Maybe I'm still trying to. I haven't got the gumption, and with doing a fundraiser for Dummy, it's going to be a little bit different for me. I was going to try to talk the company into, putting the bill for me, but now we're donating money to a friend. So it's kind of hard to do both. So it works for me, though. I think it'll come back to you if you put it out there. It'll come back. Maybe we'll help out Dummy this month, and something will come my way next month. Well, is that it tonight, Steve? Are we going to wrap it up?
Yep.
It sounds like you're about to wrap it up.
Everyone else have anything else before we wrap things up? All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again next time. We're working on 2 shows a week here before too long. I don't know when that'll happen, but it is in the works. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone ever watching over on weedtv.com. Thanks for weedtv.com for hosting us over there. And we will see you guys again next time. Cheers.
Good night.